Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the seventh chapter of what would have happened if Naruto were the reincarnation of Asura. I hope you enjoyed the previous chapter, and if not, I invite you to check out my channel. Without further ado, I'll leave you with the story.
Chapter 19. An Uchiha Reunion. Previously, my name is Uchiha Sayuri, and you two will be answering some questions. Oh? Itachi's little Imuto, Kakuzu remarked. Haiden cackled madly. Foolish little girl. Do you think you'll be able to make us answer you? We're S-rank shinobi. What makes you think you could stand up to us? Sayuri looked at him with a level gaze, raising the tenpenki. Try me, ha 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 ha. Well, it's your funeral, girl. Haiden exclaimed right before he lunged at her, much to Kakuzu's annoyance due to his lack of planning. He supposed that was the point since Haiden could basically throw himself into battle however recklessly without dying. Sayuri dodged the scythe, then parried it with her sword when it was next swung at her. Haiden remained unfazed and bore a maniacal grin on his face as he swiped at the Uchiha unrelentingly. With a crazed laugh, he declared, "I got this, Kakuzu. Stay out of my kill." His partner grunted but agreed silently. Perhaps Itachi's little sister would give him a lesson in humility and strategy he would not forget. She sidestepped another swing of his and smacked the back of his head with the flat of her blade. The man growled and put force into his backswing. Sayuri evaded it by ducking, and once it swung past her, she quickly stood up and capitalized on his open form. The Uchiha took a step forward and with a flick of her wrist, delivered an arcing shot to his left shoulder. The folded metal edge of the cataclysm ate through fabric and found flesh, leaving behind a 3.5 centimeters wide laceration. Gripping the handle tightly, the Uchiha dug the sword downwards before pulling it away to avoid Haiden's reciprocal attack. She jumped back as he roared, "You little bitch! I swear to Jashin-sama, I will have your blood." Kakuzu watched the fight with slight amusement. This girl had kept up with the agile Bukijutsu specialist without even using her clan's fabled eyes, and even drew first blood. It appeared that she had her brother's skill. Well, not that it mattered. All it would take was one small nick. Sayuri analyzed her brief exchange and realized that for a S-rank shinobi, he was rather impulsive and reckless. There must have been a trump card that he was hiding, the reason behind his complacency. She was snapped out of her thoughts by Haiden's right hand flashing quickly as he tossed his triple-bladed scythe at her. Instantaneously, her dojutsu activated and tracked the airborne weapon's curvilinear trajectory. It was aimed at her chest, and she would have to time this carefully. The moment before it struck, her rinnegan glowed. All of a sudden, the scythe penetrated Kakuzu's sternum, and Sayuri was at where he previously stood. The Uchiha wasted no time in firing electrified shuriken at the cable connecting his scythe to his hand. They discharged a powerful electric shock throughout the cable, electrocuting both S-rank shinobi at once. Haiden, however, seemed unafflicted by the Raitun chakra as she swapped with her shuriken and quickly closed the distance between her and the gray-haired shinobi. Sayuri brought the tenpenki down, but it was blocked by the sudden extension of a spear that was drawn from within the sleeve of his free arm. She stepped back as he simultaneously swiped at her with the retractable spear and yanked the cable on his right hand, which withdrew the scythe from Kakuzu's chest and caused it to fly towards her from behind. The tomos in her right eye spun before merging into a black mass that expanded and transformed into an atom model pattern. The scythe phased through her harmlessly and plunged into Haiden himself as he was in the path of his own weapon, causing him to fly back and crash into a tree from the unexpected force. He had not accounted for this possibility, which annoyed the heck out of him as it immediately reminded him of his fellow Akatsuki member, Tobi. Kakuzu, on the other hand, growled in pain while clutching his chest. This girl was not to be underestimated, for she had harmed them both twice in the short span of 6 seconds. The Uchiha's mind shifted into hyperanalysis mode while sheathing her sword. The initial electrocution had not even affected Haiden, although it clearly hurt Kakuzu. When she was in close quarters with the gray-haired man, she noticed that the injury she had previously left on his left shoulder had disappeared. Now he was impaled by his own scythe, and yet, impossibly, he stood up and removed it, appearing completely unscathed. Was he some kind of immortal? Physical damage didn't seem to have any effect on him. Thankfully, he was rather overconfident of his own durability, and that caused him to be reckless. Sayuri grimaced. There was only one way to do this. But first, she would have to separate the two, because now that she had brought Kakuzu into the fight, she doubted he would just stand still. Her fingers formed a cross sign. She would have to thank Naruto for this. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With a burst of smoke, a shadow clone materialized into existence and took on Kakuzu. She quickly launched herself at Haiden and engaged in a taijutsu battle. If she had to be honest, she was more wary of Kakuzu. The man had not given any of his abilities away. Her mind returned to the immortal, deflecting his punch. He countered by bringing his weapon down. Her chakra flared as she declared, "Shinra Tensei," an invisible force rippled outwards from her, blasting the immortal away. "Those eyes! I see now. Jashin-sama would be pleased to have your blood." Haiden screamed in delight. Sayuri realized that it'd probably be a bad idea for him to draw her blood, since he kept on ranting about this god who apparently was the one who bestowed him with immortality. The Uchiha clapped her hands. Chikashodo, a giant chameleon, burst into existence behind Haiden, but he could not see it till it materialized after binding him with its tongue. "What the fuck? This is disgusting," Haiden swore. With its tail, the chameleon disarmed him while Sayuri appeared before him. "Jigakudo," she muttered as the king of Hell's head rose from the ground. "Ninjendo," she intoned, tapping his chest. A purplish aura wrapped around her hand, enabling her to draw out of the soul of Haiden. She watched emotionlessly as he struggled against his bonds, though it eventually proved futile as Sayuri yanked out his soul and stored it within the king of Hell's mouth. All his memories entered her mind. Once she dispelled the chameleon, she launched a tornado kick on the corpse of the immortal towards a tree before it even hit the ground, then pinned it with a well-placed flame control arrow. 1 down, 2 to go. Sayuri ran towards Kakuzu while dispelling her clone, letting its memories come to her. From what her Kage Bunshin gleaned, the Taki Nukenin was able to utilize a jutsu that hardened his skin to something akin to diamond that could break a kunai. The Uchiha sprinted forward to meet her opponent, and immediately went on the offensive, pushing him back. Kakuzu was not one to be easily beaten in taijutsu. In fact, his experience was the main reason why he could maintain parity with Sayuri's Sharingan augmented style. He dodged back from a fast swipe from Sayuri, then caught her arm as it came back. His other hand attempted a punch, but it was quickly halted by her knee. The Uchiha then flicked out her foot, breaking his grip on her. She then shifted to the defensive as the Taki Nukenin returned with a series of kicks. She deflected the first 2, then stepped back to evade the rest. Sayuri jumped to avoid a low kick, executing a layout over Kakuzu's head, while her right hand formed the Teritsu no In. When her feet contacted the floor, she pushed back more and backflipped away from the Nukenin. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. She launched a giant ball of flames at Kakuzu, who quickly countered with a jutsu of his own. Suitun, Suijin Hiki. Water burst from the floor and blocked the incoming assault of flames, resulting in mist that obscured the Nukenin's vision. He was not fooled, however, and sensed the Uchiha zipping past him. Kakuzu spun around and formed 3 hand seals, which Sayuri's dojutsu tracked and copied. Katan, Zukaku, Fire Style, Cranium Carver. A firestorm erupted from a red mask that burst out of Kakuzu's back and towards Sayuri's own technique. They clashed and cancelled out. Suddenly, black threads sprouted out of Kakuzu's back and formed 4 different giant masses that flanked him, each having a colored mask. Sayuri could see with her Rinnegan the different elemental affinities each creature possessed. Currently, there was a buildup of Raitun chakra in the creature with the yellow mask. Raitun, John, Lightning Style, False Darkness. Kakuzu shouted before the creature launched a powerful beam of lightning in the shape of a spear at Sayuri. The Uchiha's hand flared with Raitun chakra that manifested with the roar of 1,000 birds. Fearlessly, the girl brought her hand to meet the incoming stream of lightning. By now, her Chidori was already on par with Kakashi's Raikiri, which made it S rank, and thus it easily overpowered the B rank Raitun jutsu. She didn't stop there. Chidori Iso, Chidori sharp spear. Sayuri's hand crackled as shape transformation was applied to her Chidori, causing a thin but sharp line to shoot across what had once been the false darkness. With great precision and the element of surprise, it tore through the lightning mask, destroying the creature. Sayuri quickly maneuvered her hand, swiping the entire spear horizontally in an attempt to take out the rest. Of course, Kakuzu and his organisms would not make it so easy for her and jumped out of the way while launching their own jutsu. Futon, Atsugai, Katanzukaku. The two jutsu combined into a giant inferno that swiftly closed the distance between Sayuri and Kakuzu. At her command, ethereal purple flames wrapped around Sayuri and formed a massive ribcage that shielded her from the effects of the combination jutsu. The Uchiha poured even more chakra into the Susanoo, manifesting in the shape of a titan. The bow on its left arm was quickly knocked with 3 arrows. Taking only a second to aim, Sayuri fired all 3 arrows at once and used a Meno Tajikura to speed up the one heading towards the wind mask, as it would severely handicap the tactic of cooperation ninjutsu utilized by the masks. After all, what kind of technique could result from fire and water combined? As expected, the wind mask was obliterated while the fire mask's body was hit. The water mask narrowly missed the arrow. Of course, for the fire mask, the damage was only temporary as the black threads simply repaired themselves. Unexpectedly, Kakuzu's hand burst out from the ground within her Susanoo, connected to black threads which enabled Kakuzu to remotely control it. It latched onto Sayuri's ankle and quickly ripped her out of the protective envelope and straight towards a tree. She smashed into the trunk with great impact, causing splinters of wood to fly everywhere. "Damn it, Kawarimi!" the Nuke-nin cursed. "Katan, Zukaku!" Kakuzu called once again. At the last minute, Sayuri swapped with the water mask, causing it to be overwhelmed with flames. "This technique again. You're getting boring, Kakuzu," the Uchiha remarked as she initiated Amaterasu on the fire mask and took it out. Now completely disarmed, Kakuzu had no choice but to use taijutsu. The Nuke-nin threw a punch at Sayuri, who quickly dodged it and slapped it away. He spun around and struck with his other fist. The Uchiha blocked with her other hand. Seizing his left arm, she swiped a knife hand across his arm towards his head. Kakuzu deftly weaved around her strike and with ferocious speed, entered her guard. "Doton Domu, Earth Style, Iron Skin." Kakuzu roared before he stabbed her chest with a diamond-edged thrust of his hand, lifting her up with his bare strength. The Uchiha gurgled as blood flowed out of her mouth from the internal injury. "You have cost me much loss, Uchiha Sayuri. I confess your title of Konoha no Raijin is well-deserved. But no matter, for I have triumphed again. Your heart will be the first one to help restore my collection." Sayuri grinned, showing her bloody teeth. That was never a good sign. When you had your hand through your opponent's lung cavity, there was only one reason why he would even smile. The Uchiha before his eyes melted into nothingness. "Genjutsu, I've been had." Kakuzu felt a hand tap his back. Sayuri had activated her Kyukan no Jutsu and was quickly backpedaling away from the Taki Nuke-nin as she drew out his soul. Just like his partner, Kakuzu's lifetime of memories flooded into her mind, and it was rich indeed. He had lived since the time of the Shodai Hokage, and even fought him. It gave her a good idea of what Naruto would be like at his prime. Of course, the information she was after was more important. Flashback. The members of the Akatsuki were in a meeting conducted over their holographic rings. "Itachi, Kisame, the two of you will take charge of capturing the Yanbi Jinchuriki in IWA and bring him back here to aim for sealing. We should be done with Yagura by then." "Hi, Leader Sama," Itachi replied to the man with the Rinnegan. "Haiden and Kakuzu, you two will deal with the Nanabai Jinchuriki in Taki," the man ordered. "Hi, my home village Kakuzu muttered to himself. Present, she had dealt with 2 S-rank Nuke-nin, and now she knew where to go to find her brother. However, she also had to accept the fact that there was another Rinnegan user in the Elemental Nations. At least that explained who was the one who could conjure the Geto Mazo, given what Naruto told her after they had defeated Gaara. Sayuri sighed. It would be a good time to cash in both corpses at the bounty office. Hokage's office 1 day later. There have been reports that the bodies of Kakuzu and Haiden, 2 nuke from the Akatsuki have been cashed in at a local bounty office by Sayuri, said Jiraiya. Just recently she ended Yagura's regime by single-handedly killing off the 10,000-strong loyalist army. The girl is getting extremely strong as the days pass, and I dare say she is at Naruto's level, Tsunade remarked. Jiraiya nodded. It's no coincidence that she's targeting the Akatsuki, because her brother is there. There's no doubt that she will soon find him and fight him. We have to keep her in check, because officially she is still in Konoha's service and whatever she does will be attributed to us. To put it bluntly, she's a powerful but loose cannon, stated the Hokage. The Toad Sage agreed, but added, anything we do must be done carefully, because Naruto still has a dangerously strong attachment to her, and whatever becomes of her might affect his loyalty to the village. Worse, Danzo might capitalize on the situation and sway him to his side. Tsunade's side. It was a precarious situation, having to deal with someone outside her control while ensuring the warmongering Danzo didn't try anything funny. She just wished that there was enough evidence to charge him and get rid of him. So far, Jiraiya did not have any of such luck. Alright then, Haim. Guess we'll just wait and see. Make sure Naruto knows none of this or he'll be bound to act rashly. With that, the Gama Sennin jumped out of the window, leaving Tsunade to retrieve a bottle of sake from her desk drawer. She popped open the cap and took a swig. Kami-sama, why did I take this job again? IWA AIM border 1 day later. Itachi and Kisame approached the entrance of Amigakure, with the former carrying the battered body of the Yambi Jinchuriki Rashi. They halted upon seeing a cloaked figure seated patiently in the middle of the road as the rain pattered on the person's hood. As if noticing their approach, the figure looked up, though the ambient darkness shrouding AIM made it difficult to see who it was. All they could make out was a single eye, glowing a menacing vermilion with 3 revolving commas the color of night. Itachi passed the body of the Jinchuriki to his partner. Kisame, go ahead and deliver this to HQ. I will deal this, though I can't say if I'll make it back. The Kiri Nuke raised an eyebrow. Oh? I see. She has finally come for you. Well, good luck, Itachi. It was nice working with you while it lasted. With that, the man disappeared. So, Emuto, you're finally here? Spoke Itachi as Sayuri stood up and pushed back her hood, exposing her beautiful face marred by raindrops. You've grown into a fine young lady. I'm impressed that you found me, though I'm not surprised given the recent massacre of the Kiri army and the news of the immortal duo's deaths. Itachi continued. Nisan, you've no idea how long I've been waiting for this day, said Sayuri darkly, ignoring his comments. Without warning, she unleashed her potent chakra and let it radiate freely, exposing her hatred for the brother that had caused her so much pain, and even led her to hurt her own friend, her best friend, her would-be fiancé. The wind whipped around as her chakra continued to scar the land, creating cracks in the concrete floor beneath her. It was visible by the dark, purple aura that enshrouded her, akin to a thundercloud surrounded by flashes of lightning. It seems that you have allowed the hate within you to grow, and because of it you've achieved true strength. Suddenly, the younger Uchiha appeared in front of her brother, her sword impaling his chest. Shut up. You do not know of how I gained my power. My Sharingan was awakened from love. My hate for you merely advanced it. Because of it, I gained a power greater than the Sharingan, one most can only dream of, and this is how I know you're not showing your true self. Itachi burst into a murder of crows that regrouped further away from her. When you're ready, find me at the old Uchiha hideout in Hai no Kuni, his deep voice announced. With that, the crows took flight. Sayuri flipped her sword and deftly returned it to its scabbard as she glared at the retreating form of the crows. Uchiha hideout. Later, footsteps fell on the abandoned concrete of the Uchiha clan's outpost, echoing within the large chamber that formed the main meeting hall of the hideout. Seated on a throne of stone on a platform in the hall was Uchiha Itachi, calm and poised. Well, Anai-san, are you gonna run away again? Asked Sayuri. Itachi didn't reply. I want answers. Why did you massacre our clan? I've told you before, and I'll say it again, Sayuri. I did it to test my strength, and the clan proved to be disappointingly weak. His sister growled. You bastard! What did they do to deserve it? What about Ka-san? Tu-san? At this point, Her blood was boiling, and just like before, her purple chakra flared. They were the same. Foolish Uchihas, the cursed clan that loved to flaunt their power. A clan so bound by hatred, with a history steeped in blood. Don't you understand, Sayuri? The instant you entered this world, you were destined for a life of bloodshed. But I will be the one to be free from the curse of hatred. I will be the one to wield the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi ranted in an almost maniacal craze. Sayuri exploded in a fit of unbridled rage. And you're any different? You wanted the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan for yourself, and just do that you killed Shisui and I, then murdered the whole clan but left me alive so that I would obtain it too, and ultimately I was just your spare pair of eyes. The younger Uchiha screamed. Itachi smirked. That's right, Amuto. Why do you think I kept you alive and treated you so well when we were younger? You were my prized spares, my only path to true power. You are the one who will remove all my limitations, and after I kill you, I will be unstoppable. I swear to Kami-sama, I'll kill you today if it's the last thing I do. Sayuri roared and with a savage cry, freed her sword from its scabbard. Try to make it happen, responded the elder Uchiha, who suddenly appeared before her. The girl slashed outwards with her tsurugi, causing him to jump backwards. Sayuri returned with a downward swipe that Itachi sidestepped. He retaliated with 2 punches that were blocked. She switched to her right hand and swept her sword upwards in one swift stroke that Itachi just narrowly avoided. Without warning, she dropped the tsurugi into her left hand, and while wielding it upside down, jumped at Itachi. The elder Uchiha quickly evaded backwards to avoid the edge of the blade. Now in the air, Sayuri brought her right hand into a seal of confrontation before her chest. A torrent of flames exploded from her mouth, heading straight towards Itachi. The Konoha Nuke-nin leapt up to dodge the fireball and came face to face with his sister, who launched a kick at his stomach. Itachi crashed onto the ground and flipped into an upright position just as she landed. He drew a kunai and lunged at her, prompting her to block it with her sword. The tip of the sharp implement pressed against the polished blade of the Tenpenki, which reflected Itachi's eyes, red and swirling with magatama. Sayuri glared at him with her onyx eyes that then bled into a glowing vermilion. With her left hand still gripping the handle of her tsurugi, she executed 2 one-handed seals, eliciting a sudden discharge of Raitun chakra. Itachi retreated upon noticing the buildup of chakra, just in time to avoid the potentially lethal explosion of electricity. Sayuri stabbed the Tenpenki into the concrete and yelled, "Chidori Nagashi!" Raitun chakra radiated outwards and rushed towards Itachi, who calmly threw a kunai at her. The girl extracted the sword from the ground and knocked away the projectile. It spun in midair, then in a burst of smoke, revealed itself to be a shadow clone. It substituted with the original, who simultaneously avoided the Raitun jutsu and closed the gap between him and Sayuri. Flashing through a string of hand seals, the elder Uchiha then spouted a fireball at Sayuri at point-blank range. The fire engulfed his sister, and for a moment, nothing could be seen. Gradually, however, the firestorm diminished in size before revealing an unharmed Sayuri, with her outstretched hand siphoning what appeared to be chakra from the jutsu. Itachi's eyes widened slightly, though not enough to appear as if his composure had been lost. So it's true. By now, Sayuri's right eye had transformed into the Choku Tomo Mangekyo. Her bang swayed to the side, revealing the divine dojitsu behind it. You possess the Rinnegan. That accounts for the rumor of you forming a satellite and devastating the Kiri army, stated Itachi. The younger Uchiha replied, That's right. Enough of these games, Anija. No more genjutsu. Both of them began to melt into nothingness. You've really exceeded my expectations, Imuto. I'm really impressed by your growth, remarked the seated elder Uchiha. I would warn you not to underestimate me, but you will lose your life today anyways, responded Sayuri, who sheathed the cataclysm. She brought her left hand over her right hand. Kuchios, Reiko Kenka, summoning, lightning flash blade creation. Sayuri yelled as she fired dozens of summoned shuriken at her brother, stealing the initiative. Itachi sprung out of the throne, leaving it to be impaled by the dangerous projectiles. With great speed, he ripped several weapons of his own out of his pouch and flung them at Sayuri as he flipped overhead. The younger Uchiha accurately knocked them away with a kunai, then threw it at her brother along with 30 other similar weapons. The elder Uchiha landed and rapidly fired his projectiles, deflecting his sister's relentless onslaught. This went on for the next 20 seconds. Just as suddenly as it had started, the clang of metal ceased as the two Uchiha siblings clashed among the hundreds of scattered shuriken and kunai. They were in a deadlock, with Itachi gripping Sayuri's left arm with his right and vice versa. Another Itachi leapt up from behind the original, wielding 3 kunai that it then tossed at her. He managed to form a shadow clone during all that throwing? Thought Sayuri, who looked up at the Kage Bunshin and tracked the incoming projectiles. Shinra Tensei, a force rippled out and plowed into anything surrounding her in a 5-meter radius, knocking them back. She did not waste time and swiftly drew a Fuma Shuriken from her storage seals. Sayuri tossed the giant windmill shuriken at her brother, whose clone stepped up and took the damage for the original. It scattered into crows which flew at her while transforming into shuriken. She weaved a sequence of hand seals before declaring, Rakudo Inton, Goryuka no Jutsu, 6 Paths In Style, Great Dragon Flame Jutsu. Enormous dragons erupted from her mouth as she pumped out a copious volume of Ketan Chakra, augmented by the 6 Paths In power. They engulfed the shuriken and easily incinerated them before heading towards the elder Uchiha. Itachi, alarmed by the powerful inferno, knew that it was no ordinary Ketan Jutsu that could be put out by water. His eyes morphed into their kaleidoscopic stage. Amaterasu, he intoned. Black flames sprouted on the dragons' heads, ferociously fighting them. With a mental command, Sayuri directed the dragons skyward along with the black flames on their faces, causing them to obliterate the ceiling of the hideout and disappear into the clouds above. Itachi frowned. There was no reason why Sayuri would do that unless she had a plan. Whatever it was, he had to be prepared to face it. He clutched his eye in pain, closing them for a moment. What's wrong, Itachi and I? Sayuri taunted. Is your Mangekyo giving you some trouble? Itachi did not let it get to him. He grimaced as he opened his bleeding eyes. The elder Uchiha looked up to the skies and saw the ominous clouds stirring overhead, lightning just flashing upon the horizon. Don't look away, Anija, came the warning voice of Sayuri at his ear, just before she launched him crashing into the far wall with a forceful tornado kick. Itachi had not even sensed her approach, and thus was caught completely off guard. He got up as Sayuri's hand began to crackle with the Chidori, and a purple avatar protected her. Lightning overhead coalesced into a single point, transfiguring into a giant beast of lightning that seemed almost divine. Its red eyes and intimidating face was enough to drive Itachi to action. And now, begone with the thunderclap, commanded Sayuri, who swung her hand down. The large dragonoid closed the distance between it and Itachi in a mere fraction of a second, instantly obliterating the hideout and reducing the environment into a rubble. The ensuing explosion was bright, but Sayuri could see through it with her Rinnegan. As expected, her brother had gotten out of it alive by activating his Susanoo. Of course, that was her plan. She knew that the prolonged use of his Mangekyo would ultimately result in fatigue. The orange titan that surrounded Itachi faded away as he got weaker. Meanwhile, he watched as Sayuri strode towards him, her own Susanoo disappearing. The Konoha Nukenin was panting hard because his overuse of the Mangekyo had exacerbated his condition and caused his health to deteriorate further. The end was nigh. Well, he still had to act his part till the very end. Sayuri stopped right in front of him. Pathetic traitor. You should look at yourself, Anaya-san. You're on the verge of death from using the Mangekyo. But I will not allow you to die from it. I must be the one to claim your life. She stepped forward and pressed her palm to his chest. Finally, the Uchiha clan is avenged. This is it. Itachi and I. Ninjendo. Kyukan no Jutsu. Purple light radiated from the spot where she touched his chest, and she proceeded to drag out his soul. He offered no resistance, though it was not as if he could even if he wanted to due to his state. Blood from his mouth began to drip, but in spite of this, Itachi smiled. I guess this is it, Sayuri. the elder Uchiha whispered. Good riddance, Sayuri spat, before she completely yanked out his soul. Itachi's corpse collapsed to the floor with a loud thud. His lifetime of memories entered her head. Flashback. What happened to you, Shursui? Asked Itachi in concern. Clutching his bleeding eye socket in agony, the other Uchiha replied as he panted heavily. That bastard Danzo, he got one of my eyes, Itachi growled. That man can't be trusted. He wants the power of Kodo Amatsukami for himself. Shursui nodded. Knowing him, he'll come for my left eye next, said Shursui. That's why I'm entrusting this to you. As he said that, the Uchiha gouged out his left eye. Itachi was shocked. But why? Maybe Danzo was right. Changing the mindset of the leaders won't change the whole clan's sentiments. But I believe you can do it, Itachi. You're my best friend and the only one I can count on. Protect the peace of the village and the Uchiha name. Free our clan from the curse of hatred. Shursui pressed his remaining eye into Itachi's hand. The younger Uchiha accepted it reluctantly. Wait then dash. This is goodbye, Itachi-kun. Don't join me too soon, said Shursui with a smile. Right before he leapt off the cliff and drowned in Naka River, Itachi cried as he watched his first and only friend commit suicide before him. And it had the intended effect Shursui had planned for. Itachi's Sharingan matured into its next stage, the Mangekyo Sharingan. Present, Sayuri was shocked, just as her brother was all those years ago. Itachi had not murdered Shursui? And what was this about the clan and the peace of the village? Flashback. Itachi knelt before the Honorable Elder Shimura Danzo. Danzo-sama, I believe there is still a way dash. Stop, Itachi. It is pointless. There is no outcome that can see the Uchiha clan's survival, declared the elder. I'll give you a choice, Itachi. Either you support the Uchiha coup d'etat and have the whole clan, including Sayuri, killed in the ensuing conflict, or you can accept the assignment to wipe out the clan before the coup starts and be allowed to spare your little Amudo. Itachi grimaced, but the choice was obvious. The Uchiha stood up. It will be done. By tomorrow morning, the Uchiha clan will cease to exist. Present, Sayuri's eyes widened. Just what the hell was going on? The Uchiha clan was staging a revolt against Konoha? Millions of questions raced through her mind as she recounted more memories. It seemed that there was more than met the eye behind the clan massacre. Flashback. Itachi stopped a mysterious man with a mask as he was walking in the forests near the Uchiha clan compound. How did you know about me? The man asked. You slipped through the highest level of leaf security and went to examine the Nakano Shrine secret stone tablet. Only the Uchiha are aware of its location. After that, I studied your movements and looked into what kind of character you are, what your ideology is. Well, that saves me much time. For you already know that I am Uchiha Madara, and bear hatred toward both Konoha and my own clan. Itachi replied, I have terms. I'll help you exact revenge upon the Uchiha clan, but you are not to harm the village itself, nor Uchiha Sayuri. I agree, but I'll join you. That is non-negotiable. Present, so that other Uchiha was involved in killing the clan, and Sayuri was certain from her inheritance of Indra's chakra that Madara could not have been alive at the same time she was. She clenched her fist tightly in anger. Flashback. Itachi was in his parents' room. Both were in the Saiza position, facing away from him. Fugaku spoke. I see. So you've aligned with the other side. Tu-san? Ka-san? I just dash. We already know, Itachi, interrupted Mikoto. Fugaku continued, Itachi, just promise me this, that you'll take care of Sayuri. Tears welled up in his eyes, and his hands began to shake uncontrollably as he held the sword that was about to taste the blood of his parents. I will. Do not fear it. This is the path you have chosen. Compared to yours, our pain will be over in an instant. Our philosophies may differ, but I'm still proud of you. You're truly a kind child, said Fugaku. Itachi steeled his resolve and completed the deed. As he stood over the corpses of his parents, his little sister burst into the room. Nisan, what terrible person could have done this? Cried a young Sayuri. Painful as it might have been, Itachi gazed at her with his tearful eyes that took on the form of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Tsukuyami, after leaving his sister behind with carefully planned parting words, Itachi sent a crow clone to Danzo to threaten him with the leaking of the leaf secrets should Sayuri ever come under threat. Meanwhile, the original headed to the office of the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, it is done," Itachi reported with a bow. Hiruzen was sad that someone so young had to take on such a huge burden, but knew it was necessary. "Thank you, Itachi. You have done a great service to the village," said Hiruzen. Itachi stood up. "My mission is far from complete. I'll be infiltrating the Akatsuki under Jiraiya-sama's orders, so I'll be sending some information back from time to time. But above all, I beg you to take care of Sayuri for me, Hokage-sama," pleaded Itachi. Hiruzen smiled sadly. "It will be done. Pains me to have to brand you a traitor." "Once again, Itachi, I thank you on behalf of the whole village," the Uchiha nodded. "Make sure she never finds out." With that, Itachi disappeared, officially defecting from the leaf. Present, Sayuri fell onto her knees as the truth of the whole matter finally fell on her. It crushed her heart to know how much her brother had actually loved her, and yet all this while was forced to take on the guise of a traitor. Hated by everyone, he still continued dutifully serving Konoha. She broke down and wept uncontrollably, mourning the loss of her beloved brother. "Why?" Sayuri screamed at the heavens. "Why is it so unfair? Why did it have to be you, Niisan? Why did you leave me alive? How was I different from the rest? I should have died along with everyone else, but you just had to shoulder this whole thing upon yourself." Sayuri wailed as she pounded the body of Itachi with her fists. She sobbed painfully into the chest of the corpse as she gripped the cloth of his shirt, her tears wetting the already soaked cotton further. The rain she had induced beat down on her, almost like the sky was mocking her, reminding her that everything that had transpired was of her own doing. Raindrops rolled down her face, coalescing with her tears. At some point, she could no longer tell the difference, nor did she care. Sayuri suddenly had a horrid vision of the past, a memory that had returned to haunt her. Flashback. "Are you fighting for your own sake, or to protect others?" Haku asked. Sayuri's gaze softened. "I don't really know. I guess I fight to avenge my clansmen, but at the same time I also protect the people I love from being harmed by what I do." The girl nodded sympathetically. "That's something I understand. It's a different kind of love, and it must kill you inside to be hated by the one you love, because to protect them you must be the villain, huh? Well, you're still fighting to protect someone precious to you, and that's something I respect even greater because you sacrifice more than anybody to protect everybody." Present. At this moment, she just felt very empty. She had lost all sense of purpose. That was when Sayuri realized the flaw in her revenge. She had been so focused on killing her brother that she had lost sight of the bigger picture. Everything else had been scrapped, given up in pursuit of the perceived ultimate goal of revenge. So much so that she had even hurt Naruto, and now she truly knew that it was for naught. It turned out that Itachi had loved her all along, and the realization that her clan was planning a coup against the village simply crushed her. Her heart ached for she had hurt the person whom she loved, just to kill the other person who loved her. "Why?" Her voice softened now, as she collapsed onto the floor weakly. Sayuri's mindscape. Indra was concerned. After exacting revenge, the curse of hatred was running weakly through her veins. However, he realized just what it would take to get her back on track. "Sayuri, this is all the village's fault. They were the ones who harmed your clan and your brother. They forced him into a decision to execute the whole clan, and to shoulder all the blame while continuing to spy for the village. They sucked all the benefits from the Uchiha clan. They killed off the conspirators without public knowledge by covering up with your brother, who had to bear the mark of a traitor while still providing them information," incited Indra. Sayuri glared at him with fierce eyes, something he did not expect. Although he could read her thoughts, it appeared that the next one was just newly formed. She had just come to a revelation. "Shut up, Indra. I know that you're trying to get me to go against the village. You want me to conspire against them just to fuel your desire for the proliferation of the curse of hatred. I've already hurt so many people precious to me the first time I followed the curse. I will not foolishly follow the same path again and hurt more people. Danzo is the one who is to blame, not the village." He stole Shirsue's eye and forced Itachi to make a choice that he could barely decide against. When the Kodohama Tsukumi was still an option, declared Sayuri. Indra's eyes widened. How had she realized? The Uchiha shook her head. Naruto was right. This curse is dangerous. It is powerful but selfish, and makes one forget everything that matters just to pursue an ephemeral dream that will never come to fruition. You're a bad influence, Indra, the Akatsuki cursed in an ancient tongue. What makes you think you can stop me? I was the one who gave you the power of the Rinnegan. Foolish descendant. I cannot believe you're my transmigrant. And I cannot believe that you have fallen to the ways of the pitiful will of fire. Sayuri snorted. It's this particular flame that will burn you. Give it up, Indra, the curse is eradicated, for I have seen the truth. Ironically, with the eyes that you provided me, and have been cleansed by the fire that burns bright for all who believe in it. Don't forget that you're a guest in my house, she said, pausing to gesture pointedly at her mindscape. And I can remove your influence just as easily, Indra growled. Damn you, brat. The Uchiha walked away as mental chains began to manifest and bind her ancestor, before locking him behind 32 layers of adamantium. Don't ever forget this day. The next time you ever feel the slightest tinge of hatred, my curse will fall upon you once again, warned Indra, just before Sayuri summoned a gag on his mouth. Reality. The Uchiha stood up and sealed the body of her brother. She would give him a private burial, and ensure that his body would never fall into the wrong hands, for he deserved to be honored. She would emulate his ways by serving the village as he did. Finally, a new target. She glanced into the distance, as if she could see far enough to make out the Hokage rock. She would have to warn Konoha about the other Uchiha, the Madara imposter. A ghost of a smile graced her lips. It had been a long time since she last saw him, and she couldn't wait to see his infectious smile again. A sudden thought struck her. What if he didn't love her anymore? She did deserve it, given how badly she had treated him at the valley, but it still hurt her to think that such a thing was possible. She would then be subjected to the CRA, and well, she supposed that she could defect for real this time. Sayuri laughed dryly at her own joke. How trivial she had made it seem, which reminded her how odd it was for them not to send any ANBU after her. Perhaps she had gained such a fearsome reputation that they did not dare to do so? Or more hopefully, Naruto had been involved in persuading them not to. She blushed at the thought, and chided herself for how easily she had let the Uzumaki affect her. She supposed that was what happened when she allowed someone into her heart. Sayuri shook her head, clearing it of all such thoughts. First, she had to deal with Danzo. It was time to go home. Konoha Council Chambers. Later. For what reason have you saw fit to summon the council, honorable elders? Asked Tsunade. Civilian counselors and shinobi clan heads alike were gathered behind the closed doors of Konoha's council chambers at the request of the three advisors, though the Godame was not told why such an urgent meeting was called for in the first place. Tsunade-sama, spoke Danzo. We elders have come to an agreement to approach 2 points in today's session. The first is about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. The second is about the last Uchiha. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. Please begin. It has come to our attention that Uzumaki Naruto had received the recommendation from the Kages and Daimyo present at the Chunin exams hosted 3 years ago, on the day of the Konoha crush. And now that he's returned from training with Jiraiya, as well as the mission of rescuing the Kazekage, we believe that it is a good time to promote him to Chunin as a form of recognition of his ability. Given that he is the Jinchuriki of the village, it is important that he remains loyal, and one of the ways to maintain it, especially since he wishes to be Hokage, is to provide him with the advancement in rank that he would want, explained Danzo. That can't be it. He has an ulterior motive for sure, thought Tsunade as she tried to recall what that would entail. She managed to suppress her shock upon realizing that he was trying to implement the CRA. But Sayuri wasn't back yet, which she bet was the second point they would talk about. That meant Naruto would have to face the CRA alone. Oh, how she wished that Sayuri would just drop from the ceiling and solve all her problems at once. The Hokage gritted her teeth, but tried not to display any other emotion. So, I suppose you intend on implementing the CRA? Asked Tsunade. Danzo nodded. As we all already know, Uzumaki Naruto is the son of our beloved Yondaime, which will put him in a good place to accept the position of Uzumaki clan head. As our former allies, The restoration of the clan and the inheritance of its renowned chakra will boost the village's power. Many of the civilian counselors were grinning at this point. The council had always adored Kekkei Genkai after all. Meanwhile, the clan heads were considering all this more carefully. Say I do promote Uzumaki to Chunin, thereby automatically granting him the status of clan head. Who will form his harem of wives? Ventured Tsunade. At this, the counselors burst into a flurry of discussion. Hayashi deliberated a while before raising his hand. Hokage-sama, I propose that my daughter be his chief wife. Hayashi was aware of his daughter's feelings, and since she wasn't going to be the next clan head anyways, she might as well secure some links for the Hyuga clan. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, though it wasn't totally unexpected. Danzo asked, "Any objections?" Suddenly, a voice came from above, startling the council. "I object." Everyone looked up, shocked that someone could bypass the ANBU security detail present whenever the council was in session, and that no one had picked up the presence earlier. Sayuri dropped from the ceiling, flipping before landing smoothly on the floor with a soft thud. Pardon my intrusion. Chapter 20. Reconciliation. Previously, pardon my intrusion. The clan heads were on guard, as were the ANBU keeping vigil outside. But Tsunade immediately ordered, "Stand down." "How dare you enter the chambers without permission, Uchiha?" demanded Danzo. Sayuri glared at him while activating her dojutsu, but as a seasoned veteran he was unfazed. "And to think you would activate your dojutsu within these chambers. All usage of chakra in this room is off limits," spoke Danzo again. She observed the bandages around his right eye, and when looking beyond it, she could see the presence of chakra that was different from the rest of his body. So it was true that Danzo had stolen Shirsue's eye. "Perhaps that is the reason why no one has ever caught you yet, Danzo," Sayuri replied. "What's going on here?" Tsunade questioned. "Hayashi-sama, please do me a favor and activate your Byakugan on Danzo," requested the Uchiha. Tsunade nodded at the clan head, giving him approval. He obliged. The Hyuga gasped despite his stoic nature, and said, "I can't believe it, but Danzo has Shirsue's Mangekyo hidden behind his bandages." He then looked down at the bandages on Danzo's arm. "And on his right arm, there are 10 implanted Sharingan." Tsunade scowled. "What is the meaning of this, Danzo?" "Since you already know." He ripped off his bandages, confirming everyone's fears. Koto Amatsu dash. Danzo was interrupted as he was dealt an invisible blow to the throat by Sayuri's shadow, which knocked him back against the wall as he gurgled in pain. Sayuri shifted forth and seized the man by his neck with her Susanoo arm, lifting him off the floor. "Don't you dare use his eye, you bastard," she continued. "Hokage-sama, I believe you have seen enough. This traitor here has Sharingan and Shirsue's Mangekyo implanted on his body, and tried to use Koto Amatsukami on the council. Is that evidence alone culpable of treason? Put him down, Uchiha." "What do you think you are doing?" said Hamura harshly. "Don't get me started. Danzo manipulated my brother into killing the Uchiha clan by stealing Shirsue's eye, and forced him into the decision by removing the option of using Koto Amatsukami, as well as threatening him with my life." "Well, you made a mistake, Danzo. You left me alive." Sayuri roared, her killing intent flooding the room. The room's temperature plunged by a few degrees, and every civilian shrunk back in his seat, though they were not the target of her wrath. Furthermore, on the shinobi side, a myriad of emotions filled the clan heads, inciting rage in some and pity in others. "Execute him," choked out a civilian in an attempt to assuage her anger. "Seconded," cried another in fear. "What are you talking about? Stop making baseless allegations," shouted Koharu. "Silence," Tsunade ordered. "Sayuri, since he has caused your clan so much pain, my decision is that he will be executed at your discretion." Shikaka smirked, knowing that the Senju had already waited very long for such an opportunity, but was never able to legitimately authorize the collection of evidence on Danzo with good reason. It appeared that Sayuri was just the right person needed. "Thank you, Hokage-sama," responded Sayuri. The killing intent in the room seemingly evaporated, but all who knew better understood that it had merely receded and would not be gone until the Uchiha was satisfied. "Now, Danzo, You and I have lots to do. The man's eye widened as the air around him distorted, swirling before he was forced into her dimension. As for the Clan Restoration Act, I plead for the council to allot some time for me to discuss the issue with Uzumaki Naruto. We might have a solution, said the Uchiha. Which is? Asked Inuzuka Tsum. Tsunade smirked, already knowing what it was. Tsum, let's just allow them to present it to us at noon tomorrow, said Tsunade. She knew that Sayuri needed time to sort things out with Naruto, especially since they had not seen each other for so long. Is that sufficient? More than enough. Once again, thank you for your generosity, Hokage-sama, the Uchiha responded. I'll take my leave now to deal with Shimura Danzo. The slug Sanin nodded as Sayuri disappeared with a swirl. The Uchiha was really being careful with her words given the variable opinion on her status. She would make a good clan head. The second point? Tsunade asked the remaining elders. Never mind, Hokage-sama, replied Hamura quickly. The Senju suppressed a smirk, knowing that their point was invalidated upon Sayuri's return. As she had hoped, Kami-sama had made the Uchiha fall from the ceiling and solve all her problems. Perhaps she wasn't so unlucky after all. With Sayuri, I can't believe that Itachi was the kind of person to reveal secrets, remarked Danzo as soon as he saw her appear. Don't say that name, warned Sayuri with a scowl. I will make you pay for what you did to my clan. I swear this on the name of every fallen Uchiha. Now come forth and prepare to receive your punishment. The Shimura was amused. I can bend the very nature of reality, girl. What makes you think you can stand up to me? With the very eyes you used to do so, replied Sayuri, who activated her dojutsu. She charged at Danzo, who was quick to flash through hand seals. Futon, Shinkajoku, wind style, vacuum bullets. The elder expelled a stream of compressed air at the Uchiha. The girl dodged it just as he fired off more at her. In a display of agility, Sayuri flipped over and under the barrage of futon bullets. She cartwheeled, sprung off the ground by pushing off her hands and spun in the air. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. Sayuri shot her own volley of flames at Danzo, who jumped back away from the onslaught only to see the Uchiha disappear before his eyes. Instinctively, he turned around, only to see the scion coming at him with a Chidori. Sayuri narrowly missed as he stepped back, so she utilized her momentum to jump into a whirling kick. His hands shot up and blocked the first one from connecting. However, her second foot swiftly followed and slammed into his temple. She pushed off his shoulders with her feet and quickly followed with a gokakyu that engulfed him. The man should have died from the heat, but he merely shimmered and reappeared a distance away. Sayuri caught on to the fact that one of the eyes on his arm closed, indicating that he had used Izanagi. Danzo smirked. You're just wasting your time, Uchiha. Like I said before, I can bend reality. Sayuri did not reply, and instead chose to withdraw a vial containing the eyeballs from Itachi she had extracted for security reasons. In a gruesome fashion, she reached into her right eye socket, pulling on the rectus muscles and then gouging the whole Mangekyo out. Carefully, she deposited the eye to join her brothers in the vial, which also stored liquid that preserved the powerful eyes. The Uchiha kept the vial and faced her opponent. Try saying that again without relying on my clan's eyes. She disappeared. Immediately, the Shimura was on guard, but still it did not help him anticipate the incoming attack. She reappeared and planted a foot into his stomach, launching him into one of the rock slabs of Kamui's dimension. Upon impact, he shattered the rock, but the pain did not end as Sayuri fired off a few kunai in quick succession. Despite having only one eye, the Rinnegan itself was still powerful enough to compensate for the lack of depth perception most would face with only one eye. He tried to roll aside, but as Sayuri's dojutsu had already accounted for that, one of them buried itself into his chest. He coughed in pain, wheezing before his form flickered and he materialized further away. Danzo weaved several seals and muttered, "Kai," which Sayuri noticed. The Izanagi had been released, probably because it was costing him too much chakra. He then grabbed a shuriken and pumped futon chakra through it, transforming it into a giant, razor buzzsaw. The Uchiha charged at him just as he tossed the weapon at her, but she did not stop, only raising a hand to release a blast of chakra with the tendo. The shuriken reflected back along its original path, heading towards Danzo. The man flipped over it, but that was a terrible error as Sayuri closed the gap between them in that time and threw a fast punch to his head. After temporarily disorientating him, she grabbed his arm and while yanking upwards, fired a kick at his shin. The man collapsed onto one knee, enabling Sayuri to extract a Sharingan from the outstretched arm she was holding. The Uchiha then leapt back and planted the eye into her socket, covering it with her right hand. Green energy glowed as medical chakra restored the link between the eye and her optic nerve. Danzo gritted his teeth. "Give it up, Danzo. Your fate is in my hands," said Sayuri. "An eye for an eye. We'll see about that." Danzo weaved hand seals to activate Izanagi before he drew blood to summon Baku, a large elephantine chimera that resembled a tapir. It opened its mouth, producing a powerful suction force that drew in the rocks around it. Danzo performed a shunshin and appeared behind Sayuri as he weaved a sequence of hand seals. Futon, Shinku Renpa, Wind Style, Vacuum Wave Barrage. Inhaling sharply, the elder then launched a series of blades that sped up once they entered Baku's suction. Instantly, Sayuri's chakra flared and a purple skeleton manifested around her, blocking the assault from behind. The girl formed the horse hand seal. Katan, Goka Mekyaku. A stream of fire tore out of her mouth and expanded into a giant blast wave that became augmented by Baku's suction, engulfing the summon in an inferno. It dispelled in a burst of smoke. Swiftly, she turned around and seized Danzo with a hand of Susanoo. Forcefully, the Uchiha compressed the elder and crushed him into bloody bits, eliciting screams of excruciating pain. The man shimmered and reappeared out of her grasp. Checking his arm, he saw another eye close. Danzo gritted his teeth. "Give it up, Danzo. Your fate is in my hands," repeated Sayuri. "An eye for an eye," the elder growled and charged at her. "We'll see about that," yelled Danzo as he flashed through a sequence of hand seals, one that Sayuri recognized from before. Futon, Shinkajyoku. Air burst out of the elder's throat and struck her Susanoo swiftly, but it was for naught as it did nothing to degrade its integrity. A bow and arrow formed in her avatar's hands, the latter of which she fired quickly at the man. Danzo leapt up to avoid the arrow, using the wind he was generating to propel himself upwards. However, the Uchiha had already predicted this, and shifted behind him with a Menotajikara before snatching him out of the air with an armored claw. A sudden sense of déjà vu struck the man. "What is this?" he roared just before he was crushed again. The Shimura's Izanagi was triggered, and the man appeared again, unscathed but shaken. He looked down at his arm and gasped in shock upon seeing the same eye close again. "What is happening? That I should have been permanently sealed by the Izanagi I used just now. Is this a genjutsu?" he thought. Danzo formed two hand seals. "Kai, it's meaningless. Give it up, Danzo. Your fate is in my hands," Sayuri stated. "Shut up," the elder shouted before he ran at her. "If this is a genjutsu, it will end if I kill her." Danzo lunged at her with a kick that she dodged. The Uchiha blocked the next punch, and retaliated only for Danzo to dispel in smoke. The real elder burst out of the floor and stabbed Sayuri in her back. Momentarily, it seemed like his shadow clone plan was effective. That is, until she burst into a murder of crows that began to circle him. Danzo stepped on a feather as he looked around, trying to find Sayuri. "This is the living memory of the man you killed. Feel his wrath," boomed Sayuri's voice. Out of nowhere, Danzo was struck by a sword slash that severed his left arm and he was kicked away with great force. The man tumbled before rolling to a stop. He breathed harshly, clutching his bleeding stump. "Izanagi," he uttered, and his left arm materialized. "Well now, Danzo, what will you do? Give it up, your fate is in my hands." "You brat!" the elder yelled before he got on his feet and pounced on Sayuri. "Die!" he screamed, plunging a kunai into her navel. The Uchiha dispersed into crows that circled him again. "What?" He stepped back in disbelief, crushing a black feather underfoot. "This is the living memory of the man you killed. Feel his wrath." For the second time, A flash of silver pierced through the black storm of crows. Pain shot through his being once his neurons relayed the sensation of folded steel cutting cleanly through flesh and bone. This was followed up by another shot to his stomach that propelled him into a slab of rock. He sat up from the shattered rubble in agony, before using Izanagi to revert himself to his original state. A quick look at his arm confirmed his fears. His eye had somehow been restored despite the use of Izanagi earlier. That meant that he was stuck in some sort of time loop. "Damn you, Uchiha! What is this jutsu?" demanded Danzo. Sayuri didn't hide the triumphant smirk on her face. "This is the jutsu designed to counter the Izanagi. Traps you in a loop forever until you learn to accept your fate. It is classified as a kenjutsu because it has an escape route built into it, but unfortunately for you, I have no intention of setting you free. Thus, I created this loop without any method of escape. That means the Izanagi is rendered useless as well. Prepare to experience pain until you die naturally in real life. This is my realm, far worse than my brother's Tsukuyami and one of the Uchiha clan's most powerful genjutsu. This is Izanami," Sayuri declared. She then separated into a murder of crows which began to swarm around him. "No! This can't be happening! No!" cried Danzo in horror as the black birds circled overhead, a mocking reminder of the shinobi he had used indiscriminately without regard for the consequences. "You'll find that many things are possible when it comes to the Sharingan, Danzo. This is why you do not ever trifle with the Uchiha." Reality. The Uchiha removed her blind right eye and replaced it with the healthy one from the vial. She then proceeded to extract all the Sharingan, including Shirsue's Mangekyo from Danzo's immobilized body. As she readjusted to her original eye, she pondered on her deadline. It was time to face him, and all she remembered was how she had wronged him. She didn't deserve him, Sayuri sighed, shaking her head. Only time would tell. She would only worry herself like this. Now she could only hope for the best. Hokage Rock Yandame's head. A lone figure sat atop the fourth Hokage's head in the windy night. Compared to the bustling night life below, it was peacefully quiet up here, precisely why it was his favorite spot. The Uzumaki looked to the moon. That feeling he felt earlier. It was something that he had not felt in 3 years. He doubted himself, but at the same time, he truly wished that he had not been mistaken. It was the other half of the Rakuto Sennin's power. It was improbable, yet unmistakable. His breath hitched as her chakra suddenly registered on his sensory range, approaching him quickly. A shadow fell on the surface of the rock and grew bigger by the second, just before Sayuri landed next to him. Naruto got to his feet. "Sayu dash!" The Uchiha threw her arms around him, cutting him off abruptly. He fell silent once he sensed the negative emotions dwelling in her being, fear and uncertainty. Even without his power, he could tell from the wetness on his shoulder. She was crying. "Tadadaima!" Sayuri managed to choke out between sobs. Naruto smiled gently. "Oh, Kiri!" he whispered as he wrapped his arms around her, reciprocating the embrace. "I really missed you." The Uchiha was surprised that he had not broken the hug yet, given what she had done to him. Like how fresh cookies on a baking tray warmed oven mitts, his warmth enveloped her, inducing an inexplicable sense of comfort. "What's wrong, Sayuri-chan?" the Uzumaki asked as he rubbed her back soothingly. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did. I'm sorry for hurting you. I was wrong. My revenge led to nothing, except the death of the brother who loved me. I was so foolish. I don't even deserve this. I don't deserve dash." Naruto suddenly gripped her shoulders and made him face her. He placed his right finger on her soft lips, startling her. "Sayuri-chan, the only thing you never deserved was the burden placed on you. No one should have to take such a huge load on their shoulders alone. I'm here to help you, to be with you every step of the way. And rest assured, I know why you did what you did. It wasn't your fault, but Indra's. What matters is that you're here with me now, and I'll always be here for you." With those words, he sensed her anxiety ebbing away. She smiled gratefully as her cheeks flushed with blood into a rosy red. "And I'm here to stay. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I don't know what I did to deserve your love, but know that I love you too with every fiber of my being. Thank you for always being there for me. for accepting me even after everything I did." Naruto brought his hand to her beautiful face and wiped off a tear with his thumb. "Please don't cry, Sayuri-chan. You look better with a smile on your face." Sayuri's lips turned up in spite of her tears, before it transformed into a full-blown laugh. "Only for you." Then she paused and took a step back. "I suppose it's now my turn to ask. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and for you to be the first and last thing I see each day. Will you marry me?" proposed Sayuri, the hopeful tone in her voice evident. The Uzumaki laughed aloud, causing her to falter. Then her expression turned to one of annoyance. "What's so fun?" He grabbed her arm and pulled the girl he loved towards him. Naruto leaned in and captured her lips with his own in nothing but pure affection. Sayuri was caught off guard and blushed even harder than before, but eventually pressed back with as much fiery passion as Naruto. He pulled away. "I believe you have your answer, Uchiha Sayuri." "Uzumaki Sayuri," she corrected playfully. Naruto chuckled. "When will the wedding be?" As soon as possible," the girl replied. "We'll have to inform the council tomorrow morning for them to lift the CRA." The blonde waved his hand dismissively. "Let's worry about that tomorrow. For now, do you want me to show you around the Uzumaki compound?" Sayuri nodded eagerly. "Follow me," said Naruto, who proceeded to leap off the rock face and land on the nearest rooftop. The air shifted as Sayuri entered the space next to him with her dojutsu. The Uzumaki pouted. "I forgot you could do that nifty little trick." Sayuri shrugged, then followed him as he weaved through the winding streets of Konohagakure. "Uzumaki compound. Here we are," announced Naruto, gesturing his hands at the comfy-looking residence. "Do me a favor and press your finger on this seal," requested Naruto as he flashed through a sequence of hand seals. She did as asked, guessing that the Uzumaki was adding her fingerprint to the seal so that she would be able to enter the compound at will. The gate unlocked with a whir of mechanisms and swung open. "Come." Naruto ushered her onto the stony path that led to the front door of his house. The two-story residence was unassuming and was smaller than the Uchiha compound. However, upon entry, it was admittedly more cozy and had a warm vibe to it. The Uzumaki gave her a tour of the house, which was well equipped with many facilities. Naruto then brought her back to the living room and sat her down on the large sofa. "Would you like tea?" asked the blonde. Sayuri nodded and watched patiently as her fiancé went to prepare it in the kitchenette. Things were progressing well so far, and it was far better than she had expected. Far better than she deserved, she thought with a slight tinge of guilt. It faded away as soon as she remembered what Naruto had said earlier, but she doubted she could ever get rid of it totally. Sayuri," started Naruto, gaining her attention as he set the teacups down. "How were the past 3 years? I've heard many things about you, but I think it'd be more interesting to hear it straight from you." The Uchiha took a sip from her cup and replied, "Well, as I'm sure you heard, I became famous as Konoha no Raijin soon after I left. I journeyed to Nami and rented a house from Tsunade. Naruto's interest was piqued. To think that she actually returned there, the house became somewhat of a base, and I carried out my training around there. Every week or so, I would take 1 or more assignments to hunt down Nukenin and earn some money to sustain myself. I became renowned for my lightning techniques, and my reputation kept the bandits away from Nami, so the people were happy about it too. I even taught Inari some basic taijutsu, and I was sort of like an adoptive sister, I suppose. Anyways, Shinho Akiba heard of my exploits and saw that my sword was getting worn, so he offered to replace it with the Tenpenki-ai," recounted Sayuri as she grasped the sword fondly. "Recently, I fought in the bloodline rebellion of Kiri and tested myself against 10,000 loyalists. At the end, I was about to assist in the fight against the Yonde Mizukage when an Uchiha used Kamui to absorb him into his dimension, and based on what you said before, I concluded that he was from the Akatsuki." Naruto nodded. "What happened next?" "Well, I decided to pursue members of the Akatsuki to locate my brother, and upon cashing in one of my bounties, I chanced upon Kakuzu and Haiden. I took them out with the Ninjendo ability of my Rinnegan, which allowed me to read their memories. That's how I found out that the Akatsuki was based in Amigakure, and that my brother would be returning from Awagakure with the Yanbi Jinchuriki." After I found him, he led me to the old Uchiha hideout where I forced him to overuse the Mangekyo, then sucked out his soul with my human path. That was when I discovered the truth of the matter. The thought of his sacrifice nearly brought tears to her eyes, but she suppressed it. The Uzumaki was alarmed, realizing that this was a sensitive topic for her. We don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, Sayuri-chan. It's okay. I think you should know. My clan had been planning a coup against the government, and my brother was on Konoha's side. He had originally planned to use Shirsue's Kodo Amitsukami, but Danzo issued an ultimatum and forced him to kill my whole clan except for me. While he was at it, Itachi enlisted the help of whom he believed to be Uchiha Madara, in exchange for the latter not destroying the village. Of course, I know that he couldn't possibly have been the real Madara, as Indra's chakra could not exist in two incarnates at once. Naruto's eyes widened, recalling his parents' words to him years ago. I met my parents during the unsealing of the Hakuin. They told me that a masked man with the Sharingan had attacked the village, and Kurama confirmed that the Uchiha in question was not Madara but was impersonating him. I think we're talking about the same person here. I see. He's certainly a dangerous man. We should warn the Hokage tomorrow, said Sayuri. Agreed. So, how about you? What did you do in the last 3 years? The Uchiha questioned. Nothing much really. I just used the time difference between Myobokuzen and the human realm to extend my training to 13 years, and focus quite a bit on mastering ninjutsu, taijutsu, and fuinjutsu. Until now, I still haven't been very adept at jinjutsu, admitted Naruto sheepishly. 13 years? I look forward to a spar, Sayuri said. Naruto laughed. All right then, deal. He yawned and continued. It's getting late. Let's go to sleep, Sayuri-chan. But before I forget, he brought her to the study, where he retrieved the engagement ring he had gotten her years ago. I was hoping to be able to give it to you one day, and it seems like today is the day, said Naruto with a smile as he lifted her hand and slipped the ring on his fiancée's finger. Sayuri beamed at the beautiful annulus on her ring finger. He had clearly put a lot of thought into selecting its design, given the elaborate arrangement of the diamonds and tasteful color scheme. Then he began to unravel the black and red braided cord on his wrist, before she stopped him. I'd like you to keep it, as a sign that I'll always be with you. The Uchiha pecked Naruto's cheek. Thank you, Whiskers-kun. The Uzumaki blushed, and momentarily lost track of his thoughts. For the sleeping arrangements, I hope you don't mind. Naruto trailed off with an embarrassed look on his face. Sayuri smirked. Sleeping with you? It's all right, we're bound to do that anyways as future husband and wife. Naruto's already red cheeks turned scarlet and his tips of his ears became hot at the insinuation. Sleeping together in the same bed, the Uchiha corrected in amusement. Though not that I mind the former, she continued with a wink, before leaving the study and the stunned blonde for the comfort of the master bedroom. Mindscape, ha 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 ha. Kurama roared, sharing in the hearty laughter of Asura at his incarnate situation. Asura was happy that Naruto had finally found love, and it seemed that his commitment had turned the girl around successfully to conquer the influence of his brother. For now, the will of fire had triumphed. Master bedroom. Sayuri undressed and took a bath in the connected bathroom, allowing herself some time to relax in the heat of the water, which served to reduce the fatigue in her muscles. As her mind became more relaxed, her thoughts drifted to the comfort of the environment. It was the first time in quite a while that she felt at home, and not just a physical house but also the concept of belonging attached to it. She smiled as the steam rose around her. The Uchiha girl believed she would really enjoy family life, being Naruto's wife and tending to their children. At the same time, her love for battle would probably never dull. She was still a kunoichi through and through. For now, she would have to be content with what she had before her, and really, there was no reason not to be grateful for what she had. After all, it was everything she had ever wanted. Family. If she had to renounce the Uchiha name, then so be it. Her clan was as good as dead anyways, though their blood would still flow through her offspring. Sayuri stepped out of the bathtub and dried her hair, before slipping into a slightly revealing kimono which she normally wore to sleep. The girl left the bathroom and headed towards the bed, where Naruto was already seated, reading a manual on fuinjutsu. His shirt was off, So this time it was her turn to blush at his well-developed body. The Uzumaki noticed her approach and set the book aside on his nightstand. Did I ever tell you this, Sayuri-chan? You look beautiful with your hair down. Really? The Uchiha crawled onto the bed in a manner that might have been considered seductive in a different context, her flowing locks hanging down on her nightdress as she drew closer to Naruto. Well, she placed a finger on the midline of his abdominals, then slowly traced upwards past his navel and pectorals, before sliding up past his neck and poking him in the forehead. You are handsome too, darling, Sayuri teased with a wink. With an amused smile, she turned on her side and pulled the sheets up to her chest, closing her eyes. Naruto's head was about to explode. A primal instinct had surged through him in those moments, and he was certain that he knew what it was. Oh Kami-sama. How was he to survive for long with this teasing wife-to-be of his? Then, a sudden thought entered his mind, manifesting as a smirk because he had just found a way to retaliate. The Uzumaki slid under the covers and snaked his hands around her stomach, which she responded to similarly, mutually sharing their warmth in the cool air of the night. Oyasumi, Whiskers-kun. Oyasumi, Tofu-chan. Sayuri almost yelped as the blonde gave her soft cheek a gentle squeeze. If she had been affected by his new affectionate name for her, she dared not show it. The next morning, Naruto's eyelids lifted as the warmth of dawn enveloped him. With sudden alarm, he sat up, realizing that the bed was empty except him. Yesterday had seemed so surreal. Had it all been a dream? He calmed down as soon as he caught the scent of breakfast. The Uzumaki grabbed the blanket and quickly folded it, eager for the meal awaiting him. Naruto descended the stairs. In the kitchen, Sayuri was making onigiri. Noticing his approach, the Uchiha turned and smiled cheerfully at him. "Ohio," she greeted. "Ohio, Sayuri-chan." Naruto brushed his teeth and sat himself at the table. Sayuri proceeded to deliver the platter carrying the rice balls. "It's been a long while since I last tasted your food. I could never find onigiri as good as yours anywhere else," remarked Naruto as he dug in. "Well, that's what I hope to achieve by making this today," replied Sayuri as she picked up her own pair of chopsticks. Naruto sighed in happiness. "Thank you for the food." "You're welcome," Sayuri responded courteously, causing Naruto to start laughing. "What is it?" "Nothing. It's just how we're being so formal for no reason at all," replied the Uzumaki. Sayuri smiled in nostalgia. This was how it was like back in her childhood. The Uchiha clan adhered strongly to traditions much like the Hyuga clan, and everything followed formality to the letter. "And how you're so different from before," Naruto continued. The Uchiha knew what he meant. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. All those times I called you a loser in the academy days, I really hated myself for doing it." Naruto placed a comforting hand on hers. "It's all right. You've said before why you did it. I'm just glad that you're back to your old self." The Uchiha sighed. "My blind thirst for vengeance had changed me, for better or for worse. But don't worry. The only thing that has never changed from then till now is my love for you." Naruto smiled, before picking up an onigiri and offering it to her. It was incredibly cute to watch her hesitate before biting off part of the rice ball. "I love you too, Sayuri-hime. That too will never change." He popped the remaining half of the rice ball into his mouth and set his chopsticks down on the platter. He then took all the utensils to the sink. "I'll wash up," Sayuri said. "I'll be shopping for some clothes. My current one is getting worn out." With that, she disappeared in a flash of blue. Naruto shook his head in amusement as he continued to clean the dishes. "Council chambers, noon. The council is now in session," declared the Godame Hokage. As with yesterday, all the counselors, civilian and shinobi alike, were gathered. The two shinobi that had been summoned sat at the opposite end of the table on chairs that had been brought in. Naruto was dressed in a white hoodie and black trousers with an accompanying black coat. It was a smart casual attire, just as Sayuri had advised for the meeting, as he trusted her fashion sense more than his own. The Uchiha herself had chosen to wear a long-sleeved periwinkle blouse paired with a black skirt. Her hair, gathered in a ponytail, was also kept out of her eyes, revealing her soulful black pupils. The atmosphere was one of anticipation for the proceedings, as many were curious about what would become of the two clan scions. Tsunade cleared her throat. So, what is the plan that you two have come up with? Naruto looked at his fiancée, and she nodded while giving his hand an assuring squeeze. We wish to invoke Clause 14 of the Clan Restoration Act, which states that should two clan heads be married, whether one or both are under the CRA, both parties involved will be exempt from the act. Many eyebrows were raised. The Uzumaki was marrying the last Uchiha? Inevitably, hushed murmurs broke out in the room. Tsunade seemed to deliberate for a moment, but it wasn't hard to decide. All right then. For Sayuri, it is clear that you deserve the Chunin rank given your participation in the Bloodline Rebellion. As for Naruto, Jiraiya has been monitoring your progress during the 3 years, and your performance in the recent Kazekage rescue has been outstanding. I've decided that you too should be a Chunin as recognition of your abilities. Congratulations. The council clapped politely as the two bowed their heads. Since this is the case, both of you will be considered as heads of your respective clans. I hereby accept your proposed matrimonial union and declare you both exempt from the Clan Restoration Act. Both of you now share a single seat in this council, and you are required to send one representative to attend any session of the council. Thank you, Hokage-sama. This received applause mostly from the shinobi side as it meant that more power had been displaced from the civilians' hands. All right, is there any further business to discuss? Asked Tsunade. Hi, Tsunade-sama. I believe the next issue is of extreme importance, said Sayuri, perking the interest of the whole council. It is a shinobi affair. The Hokage cleared her throat. The civilian councilors are hereby dismissed, Tsunade declared much to their chagrin. Begrudgingly, they stood up and filed out of the chambers. As I was saying, the threat the village faces, it isn't new. Let's put it this way, I'm not the last Uchiha, Sayuri said. Confusion was written on the faces of many of the clan heads. What do you mean, Sayuri-san? Spoke the normally silent Aburame Shibi. A kinsman of mine, possessing the Mangekyo Sharingan, captured the Yonde Mizukage during the recent Bloodline Rebellion. He is likely to be the same person who impersonated Uchiha Madara and launched an attack on the village by manipulating the Kyuubi 16 years ago, the Uchiha explained. The pattern here is that in both instances, the people he attacked were Jinchuriki. From our sources, his plan is the same as the Akatsukis, to collect all 9 Biju in the elemental nations to restore the Jubi and cast the Mugen Tsukuyami upon the world, enslaving the masses in an endless dream. While we have not established his identity, it would be hardly surprising if he was in the Akatsuki, said Naruto. Yamanaka Inoichi raised a question. Are the methods they use to capture and collect the Biju known? Sayuri nodded. This is another disturbing thought. Naruto encountered the Geto Mazo during the rescue of the Kazekage. It is the empty shell of the Jubi with all its chakra split into the 9-tailed beasts, and it is only accessible to users of the Rinnegan like myself. Nara Shikaku's eyes widened. That is dangerous indeed. To think that another Rinnegan user exists, and that he is in the Akatsuki. Tsunade said, So how do you propose we combat this threat? I suggest that we journey across the nations and warn their Jinchuriki of the impending danger to prevent them from resurrecting the Jubi, said Naruto. He felt very strongly about this, especially since he was friends with Gaara and Fu and the former had already died once due to the Akatsuki. He did not want another Jinchuriki to die in the hands of that mercenary organization. Such a mission could take a month or two to complete, by which time they probably would have obtained the remaining Biju, assuming there are any left except the Kyuubi, Hayashi Hyuga pointed out. I could use my Rinnegan to summon the statue and determine how many Biju have not been gathered. Then we can alert the other Jinchuriki more efficiently, Sayuri offered. And at the same time, we could gather a team to strike the Akatsuki first. All right then, how fast can you complete the summoning and report back? Asked Tsunade. Give me 20 minutes, Hokage-sama. The Godame nodded and dismissed Naruto and Sayuri from the council chambers. Uzumaki Compound Training Ground. Musakaijin, 6 Crimson Ray Formation. The black receivers that Naruto fashioned out of Gudodama were distributed in a hexagonal array. Each flared with red chakra that shot into the sky, erecting a massive barrier which implied the expected size of what Sayuri was about to summon. One could never be too careful when it came to the 10 tails. The Uzumaki nodded to his fiancée, whose hands shifted to the reverse ram hand seal. Her Rinnegan emanated a periwinkle glow as she exerted much chakra to call on the powers of the outer path. Kuchios, Geto Mazo. For a moment, all was silent and she wondered if her jutsu had failed. Without warning, a large column of smoke billowed into the air, mimicking the mushroom cloud of an atomic bomb. When it cleared, a colossal entity even larger than Kurama appeared in its place. Though it was stationary, it looked menacing with its decayed, earthen-colored humanoid form. Shackles locked its arms and legs, and 8 of its 9 eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. Sayuri exhaled a breath she didn't even know she was holding. The Uchiha then signaled for the blonde to check the statue. Naruto closed his eyes and activated his sensory technique. With shock, his eyes flew open. "What is it?" asked Sayuri. "I sensed 8 distinct presences." Naruto muttered in disbelief. His fiancée's eyes widened. "That means dash." The Uchiha was interrupted by an intense, bright flash of white light that enveloped the whole village. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound that she was all too familiar with rung out, followed by the distinct rumbling of infrastructure getting torn down and thrown into disarray in the distance, though the sound grew louder by the second. As the ground shook, Sayuri's heart sank as she recognized the jutsu responsible for this. "There's only one tailed beast left, Naruto-kun, and this is the Shinra Tensei. They've come for you." Chapter 21. His Imperial Highness. Previously, "They've come for you." Naruto's fists clenched in anger. Though his eyes were scrunched shut, a lone tear falling along his cheek betrayed his feelings. Sayuri could not find words to console him. When he spoke again, his voice was no longer the same. "They murdered my kin, extracted their biju, and now they're here for me. They only had to get me, but now they've destroyed the village too. So many lives lost. I could have stopped this." Naruto muttered in a soliloquy, slowly descending into madness. Hatred seeped into his veins like venom, poisoning his heart and clouding his mind. Sayuri was alarmed, for he reminded him of her past self, hateful, and more likely than not vengeful. "Naruto dash, it's my fault!" he screamed in despair as he faced the sky. His eyes flew open, revealing red pupils marked with a single vulpine slit. Their vermilion glow mimicked the cursed dojutsu of the Uchiha. Sayuri fought her instincts screaming at her to flee from the terrifying aura he was emitting, and forced herself to hug him. "Naruto-kun, you could never have prevented this. Don't blame yourself. If anyone's at fault, it would be the Akatsuki." She felt warm tears hit her shoulder as his hatred died down, and understood at that moment the loneliness he must have felt. He was literally the last of his kind, and today Jinchurikis might become extinct once and for all. No, she would never let that happen on her watch. The blonde in her arms then broke the hug, fists clenched. "I've got a vendetta to carry out," he declared. She allowed a smirk to form on her face in spite of the damning situation. "Nothing I'm not used to. Let's go." The Uchiha made to dispel the Geto Mazo, causing a sudden gasp to escape her lips as she felt agony shoot through her body. The gigantic statue vanished in a plume of smoke and consumed part of her life force together with it. "Sayuri!" Naruto caught her before she collapsed to the floor, her labored breaths making it clear to the Uzumaki that she was in no condition to participate in this fight. "Don't worry about me," said Sayuri, smiling weakly through the intense pain. Naruto shushed her as he picked her up bridal style and deactivated the Musikaijin before returning to the house. As he laid her down to rest in bed, she murmured, "Kick their asses for me, will you?" The blonde nodded. "I will make sure there's nothing left of them after I'm done." Before he finished his sentence, though, the Uchiha stopped responding as the strain placed upon her by summoning the life-absorbing statue had finally robbed her of her consciousness. With that, he swiftly exited the house, ensuring the compound's safety barriers were in place to protect his wife. Epicenter of Shinra Tensei. Konoha had been transformed into a wasteland, its former glory reduced to nothing except what little remained on its outskirts. Much of its central business district had been totally flattened, and the humongous spherical crater left by the jutsu showed the power of the person he was about to face. On his way, he saw scenes of utter death and destruction. Corpses of his fellow villagers were strewn all over the debris from their former houses, many of which had collapsed from the Shinra Tensei. The thought made his blood boil. His fingernails pressed even harder into his palms, drawing blood. In the center of the crater stood a group of shinobi cloaked in the signature attire of the Akatsuki. Another familiar figure faced them, the fifth Hokage, accompanied by one of her ANBU. Tsunade glared at them. "You will pay for this." The Uzumaki descended upon them, alighting with a boom as his feet slammed the ground. "Leave, Tsunade-bachan. You shouldn't have to deal with the likes of such scum personally." Her eyes widened. "Naruto dash. I said leave," he snapped. It was clear in his tone that he wasn't leaving any room for discussion. Fighting while protecting people will be troublesome. The Hokage grimaced reluctantly and let her cat-masked guard take her to a safer place. "So, you've come on your own accord," said one of the men, who he could sense had just exhausted a large amount of chakra, implying that he was the culprit behind the jutsu that had obliterated the village. "Wonderful, Uzumaki Naruto. You've saved us much trouble." Behind him stood 5 others, of which all also had orange hair save one. Every single one of them was adorned with the exalted Rinnegan, immediately making this 100 times harder. The apparent leader raised his hands, gesturing at the landscape around him. "Surrender yourself in the name of peace. No one else will have to die because of your refusal to give up the Kyuubi." The Uzumaki gritted his teeth. "Peace? Look around you. How does any of this look like peace?" Naruto roared. "You don't understand. Pain is a part of peace. Without sacrifice there will never be peace. It seems you'll have to learn this the hard way," said the leader, his tone never changing. With sudden speed, he appeared before the blonde and thrust a black rod towards his gut. Before it could pierce his skin, Naruto caught it with his right hand shrouded in orange chakra. The Uzumaki growled and disarmed the leader with a forceful squeeze which shattered the chakra receiver, but not before the man buried his foot into his chest in retaliation. Naruto flipped and skidded to a stop a few meters away, but his opponent gave him no respite, attempting to land on him with a stomp of his feet. He quickly rolled away and recovered with a push-off from a handstand, narrowly avoiding his enemy's low sweep. The shine of metal in the distance caught his eye, alerting him to the projectile that was about to be fired at him. With great urgency, he slammed his palms together and erected a defense just as the leader jumped away from the incoming missile launched by the bald Akatsuki member. Mokutan Mokujihiki, with style, with locking wall. The explosion blasted against the stalwart wooden defense, throwing up a cloud of smoke which filled the air. The ground beneath the bald man burst open, revealing an angry Naruto about to split his skull with an aerial stab of his kunai. The man's cloak was ripped open from the inside, exposing a giant blade which penetrated the blonde. Alas, his skin shimmered before turning into an electric blue as Raitun chakra discharged through the man, frying him and all his metallic body parts. "Raitun Kage Bunshin," noted the leader. A high-pitched whirring caught their attention next. From the cover of dust and smoke, a giant Fuma shuriken composed of futon chakra sliced through the air at high speeds, expanding as it approached the 6 Nuke-nin. One of the larger men jumped in front of the team, reaching out with his hands. As the Raisin shuriken struck his hands, a transparent sphere enveloped him, siphoning chakra from the jutsu and dispelling it into mere smoke. The other members looked on in surprise as the dust cleared, revealing an unscathed Naruto. But what caught their attention was the fact that his eyes had orange pigmentation. The leader narrowed his Rinnegan. "We've been had." The large man was now nothing more than a stone statue. The Uzumaki charged at the 5 remaining, noting that the one at the back of the formation had summoned the King of Hell and was in the process of restoring the bald man. So it appeared each of the 6 only used one of the paths of the Rinnegan, and as he had expected, whichever one who was the Predapath would take the bait by throwing a powerful jutsu at them. The only female in the group weaved hand seals which Naruto recognized as a summoning technique and slammed her palms on the floor. As he closed the distance between them, 2 giant rhinos burst into existence and stampeded towards him. The blonde did not lose speed, crossing his fingers in the signature shadow clone hand seal while extending his sage-enhanced senses to determine the natural frequency of the rhinos. 2 clones appeared and clapped their hands together as they leapt into the air. "Senpo, Kawazunaki," Sage art, frog call. They forcefully expelled senjutsu chakra built up in their throats as immensely powerful sound waves which oscillated harmonically at the large beast's natural frequency. Energy built up rapidly in their bodies, paralyzing them in their tracks while the original slipped past them until they finally exploded into chakra smoke from the resonance. Without warning, one of the members sprung into action, lunging at him with a black rod. As he swiftly parried the weapon with his own kunai, he analyzed the situation. This one must have been the ninjendo, the rest had shown their abilities. Since they wanted him alive, the man currently before him would be useless ninjutsu-wise from what Sayuri had told him about the soul-killing technique possessed by this path. Naruto twisted away from a thrust of the receiver and seized it with his left hand while ramming his kunai down onto the opponent's right hand, disarming him. The Uzumaki then stabbed the man with the borrowed rod and smited him across the face with a sharp blow of his kunai, causing him to double over. All eyes were on him, and the man was certainly fast enough to dodge the incoming fist aimed at his head even in his pained state. What he couldn't see, however, was the tremendous amount of natural energy around it. The air rippled as the percussive strike blasted the man towards the king of hell like a rag doll. Beads of sweat rolled down the Uzumaki's head as he proceeded to sprint towards the Naraka path. The woman from earlier dropped in front of him and swung her arm in an arc, hoping to clothesline the blonde. The Konohanin quickly dropped to his knees and slid beneath her outstretched arm before recovering to his feet and pushing off as fast as he could. With a high jump, he leapt towards the annoying entity that kept reviving his foes and cocked his fist back as natural energy amassed rapidly around it. Kawazu dash. He was interrupted by an invisible force that wrapped around his ankle, yanking him down towards the floor before he could reach the king of hell. The natural energy the Uzumaki had gathered dissipated as he slammed into the ground face first, and the slimy tongue of the hidden chameleon withdrew from his leg. Sit, barked the leader coldly as he drove 2 rods into his legs. With a harsh kick, he flipped the blonde over and stabbed another chakra receiver into his shoulder. He hissed, excruciating pain coursing through his muscles. "You will never have him," Naruto muttered. The man cocked his head to the side. "I think not." Glancing at him with his Rinnegan, the agony was amplified hundredfold as his chakra invaded the Uzumaki's system. The image of the divine dojutsu bore into his head, branding itself into his mind. "Yield, Kyubi. Never in 1,000 years." Naruto screamed, his body beginning to shake violently. Wisely, the man took a step back moments before a golden shockwave of chakra, to match the Shinra Tensei, sent him hurtling away, and shattered the petrified form of the Gekido. The rods were ejected from his body, leaving steam to rise from the wounds as they closed up. Naruto stood up slowly, his body shrouded by ancestral chakra like an ethereal flame. The members of the Akatsuki recovered quickly to face the new threat posed by their quarry. "Just in time," uttered the Tendo as he flexed his fingers, energy returning to his chakra-exhausted body. Chibaku Tensei, a small black mass shot skywards, pulling slabs of rock in the vicinity as well as the Uzumaki towards it. The rocky prison quickly transformed into a sphere as more rubble piled onto its surface, trapping the Human Torch. "Got him dash." The surface of the satellite rippled before exploding, its constituent debris falling back to the earth like a mini meteor shower which peltered the flattened village. "I stand corrected," said the Tendo, observing the expanding black orb which emerged from what was formerly his satellite. Just as suddenly as it had come, the jet-black sphere retracted into smaller and denser orbs which formed an arc behind Naruto's back. The levitating Konohanin rocketed towards the Jigakudo and his summon, a large spike manifesting threateningly from his Gododama while airborne. The leader quickly extended his hand towards the Jinchuriki and exerted a gravitational pull on him. Bansho Tenin, the space between the two of them seemed to shorten as the air warped in an attempt to drag Naruto away from the Naraka path. The man's purple eyes widened when the Uzumaki exceeded escape velocity and shot out of his gravitational field. With a wave of his hand, the blonde fired a volley of truth-seeking balls at the King of Hell. The entity that had just finished restoring the human path was quickly dispelled by its owner before it could be destroyed. Alas, the black orbs found a new target and buried themselves in the chest of the Naraka path. Within moments, he disintegrated as the ultra-destructive spheres expanded rapidly. The Ninjendo leapt away as Naruto landed nearby and quickly jumped after him. He extended a chakra claw, seizing the path in mid-air. The Uzumaki closed the distance and slammed his right hand into his chest, sending the human path crashing into a crater on the ground. Without warning, the spot Naruto had contacted earlier with his palm turned dark as 4 trigrams appeared on the Ninjendo's chest. From it, black lines spurted out with a consistency like ink, forming a sphere around them. The 4 trigrams appeared momentarily on the sphere's surface before it rapidly expanded to the size of one of the faces on the Hokage rock. Without hesitation, the 3 remaining Akatsuki members got out of range of the sphere just in time to avoid everything inside it collapsing and being sucked into the chest of the human path. As he skidded to a stop, the leader raised one of his eyebrows. The Yura Shisho Fuin, reverse tetragram sealing, an S-rank Uzumaki Fuinjutsu that you applied within moments, and without hand seals either. You truly are a formidable opponent, Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde was even more surprised. The seal was set to activate upon death. How the hell had it activated straight away while he was alive? Unless Naruto closed his eyes, and instantly the world became dark save 3 flickering blue flames before him. Their chakra signature was exactly the same. How had he not noticed this before? In his rage, had he been blinded? If their chakra were to be likened to rivers, the 3 Akatsuki members were tributaries. The source of this river was somewhere else. If he was right, the puppets before him were mere corpses controlled by a greater power. A high-pitched whirring tore him out of his thoughts, and when his eyes flew open, he was greeted by the sight of a large chakra-charged shell on the bore of the Shirato's arm cannon. The supercharged projectile sliced through the air quickly towards him. As swiftly as his will would allow it, Naruto drew all his truth-seeking balls into a shield in front of him. A bright flash of blue filled the air, followed by a deafening boom. 7 more rockets bombarded the Gudodama barricade, forcing the Uzumaki to continue taking cover. Last warning, Uzumaki Naruto. Or more of this dash, said the Shirato, pausing to fire a missile at the Hokage rock. Will happen. Chakra blasted through the monument easily, wiping out all of the faces in an instant and triggering a landslide. The rocks tumbled off the side of the cliff face and crushed the buildings directly below it. No! How dare they destroy his last piece of tangible memory of his father and his adoptive grandfather? How dare they destroy his home? Naruto jumped out from his cover, avoiding the artillery shells which now flew in an arc towards him. The black shield hummed for a moment before reappearing suddenly as separate rods which penetrated and detonated the munitions before they could hit him. Corpses should stay dead, roared the blonde, just as he disappeared. Immediately, the 3 were on guard, scanning the ruined land around them for signs of their quarry. They weren't prepared for the angered Jinchuriki to materialize suddenly before the Asura path, his right hand glowing with tremendous golden fire that was even brighter than the cloak which adorned him. It took only a second for Naruto to thrust his fist into the path's body, which immediately disintegrated upon impact. All matter that was previously behind the Shirato was displaced for kilometers and formed a humongous vacuum. The surrounding air rushed in at breakneck speeds, seeking to fill the void. Consequently, the resulting gale sucked the 2 paths towards Naruto. Kuchios no Jutsu, intoned the animal path, summoning an avian beast which they jumped on to escape the violent windstorm. The Uzumaki's eyes narrowed, his hands crossing into a hand seal. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Numerous shadow clones flooded the sky, surrounding the pair mounted on the giant bird. With a mental command, all 2,000 of said clones converged on them, massive Rasengan in their hands. Only 2 words boomed loudly as the assailants flew towards the paths. Shinra Tensei. The air rippled with such force that all the clones were pushed back and dispelled at once. Even the animal path and her summon were no exception. It seemed like this jutsu was on the same scale as the one that had first torn Kanehigakura asunder, for whatever remained in the village save the Uzumaki compound was leveled. Amazingly, one person withstood all this and overcame it, one Uzumaki Naruto, who zipped through the air and reached the epicenter of the Deva Path technique faster than it pushed outwards. The furious Jinchuriki's hands found purchase on the body of the Tendo, where black markings started to crawl all over and paralyze the corpse. Naruto stared into the purple eyes which adorned the man. "Make no mistake, Uzumaki. I already have your chakra signature and will hunt you down. I will show you that you don't have to be dead to be in hell." Seconds later, the powerful jutsu ceased. Its caster, now robbed of his connection to his puppeteer, plunged through the sky. Out of nowhere, dozens of sheets of paper enveloped the body before it could hit the ground. The fatigued blonde had no time to rest with this new threat presented to him, and quickly traced the source of the chakra which controlled the paper. He found the kunoichi in question somewhere in the distance, a middle-aged woman with blue hair and piercing amber eyes. Most striking of all were the two massive wings of paper sprouting from her back which dwarfed her petite frame. With a wave of her hand, a fleet of 1,000 paper cranes soared towards him, each one marked with enough explosive tags to destroy a house. "Give up, Uzumaki-san. Your sacrifice is necessary to stop all bloodshed in this world for good," came the voice of the woman. "You say this, yet you and 7 of your terrorist crew just wiped my entire village off the map. How can I yield the very entity which holds the balance?" spat Naruto as he weaved hand seals. "This ends now." With great concentration, the blonde released an extensive pulse of chakra through the air, casting a fuinjutsu field which disabled all chakra within its spherical perimeter. Every piece of explosive tag in the vicinity was rendered useless, and all of the woman's paper constructs separated into loose sheets with no chakra to hold them together. The Uzumaki quickly flew towards the forests where he had located the mastermind behind the corpses, not even bothering to watch as the woman plummeted to her death without the ability to mold chakra for her wings. Western forests. Arg! Naruto screamed as he plowed his fist into a giant tree, felling it. As the bark crashed away, it was revealed to be hollow. Seated on a throne of wood inside was a man who looked like he had not eaten for days. Though his body appeared weary, his powerful eyes led Naruto to keep his guard up as he lunged at him. The man leapt out of his seat at the last moment, right before the blonde clasped it. The younger Uzumaki gave chase, pouncing on the man with a quick punch. Narrowly evading it, the older Uzumaki caught his fist and siphoned chakra from him at a rapid pace. With the revitalizing chakra of Asura, the man's hair regained its former red hue. Naruto growled as his chakra cloak disappeared, and retaliated by ripping his hand out of his forceful grip. A second arm grew out from the older Uzumaki's right side and threw a punch. The blonde deflected the second arm to the side before seizing it along with the first right arm. Stepping back quickly, Naruto dropped his body into a kneel suddenly and yanked down on his hands, wheeling the redhead through the air before slamming him to the floor. Almost immediately, the older Uzumaki's second right arm transformed into a cannon, forcing Naruto to swiftly push his arm aside as he attempted to blast him with chakra. The stray projectile flew at an adjacent tree and demolished it into smithereens. The blonde stood up and dragged his kinsman into a standing position before reaping his leg out from under him with a kick. Naruto swung him through the air briefly before letting go and delivering a harsh kick to the abdomen which propelled him in the direction of the village. The blonde rocketed through the air after him, engaging in a brief grappling match. Naruto snaked his hand past the defenses of the older man before thrusting a palm at his face. The blow flipped him over, enabling the younger Uzumaki to initiate a variant of the Kagebuyo. Naruto grabbed the leader of the Akatsuki by his ankles and wrapped his legs around his waist. With a quick spin, the two were locked in a fatal drop towards the village, with the redhead plunging headfirst. Hayabusa Otoshi, Peregrine Falcon Drop. The blonde disengaged just before the older Uzumaki slammed into the rock, springing away. The latter dislodged himself from the ground while hacking from a persistent cough. The Akatsuki leader drew a long, hard breath. "Naruto, you think that you know true peace," he uttered, his labored voice evident as he got up to a kneel. "But the truth is, you're foolish for thinking that peace will ever last without the pain of millions as a reminder." He punctuated this with a series of coughs. Naruto's eyes narrowed in fury. "Don't you dare preach about peace. After what you've done, you have no right to speak about peace." The red-haired man gave a bitter laugh. "You say this because you are ignorant of the true nature of peace. You would not have learnt about the importance of peace had you not experienced this pain today. And yet you still refuse to do what is necessary for the greater good. This is peace, the massacre of innocence in the pursuit of your deluded ideals. You'll pay for it. For every single life you took, the longevity granted by our lineage will be your curse. Naruto swore right as he placed his hands together in the snake seal. Mokuton, Jujika, with style, crucifix. A large cross fashioned out of rough timber rose from the floor. Do it, then. It's merely another life taken in the name of peace, said the man, a smirk on his lips in spite of what was to come. Shut up, Naruto demanded, amassing Mokuton chakra in his right hand. A long whip of interwoven branches materialized in his hand. Strewn across it were shards of bone and metal. The blonde began to scourge the older Uzumaki, administering dozens of lashes which shredded the flesh of his back and reduced it to an unrecognizable mess of blood and ribbons of tissue. Throughout it, the man let out howls of agony, so loud that they could be heard by all throughout the village who were still alive. Once he was whipped into a near-death state, Naruto discarded the tool. The dripping mess which the older Uzumaki had become was unable to stand any further, the searing pain that wrecked his body rendering him nearly immobile as he collapsed to the floor. Seeing this, Naruto gripped his kinsman by the throat and slammed him against the crucifix he had erected. At this point, the leader of the Akatsuki could no longer resist. A jet-black rod manifested in the hand of the younger Uzumaki. With a cursory glance, Naruto brought the man's left arm up to the patibulum and swiftly drove the sharp implement through his wrist, severing his median nerve. Intense pain shot through his arm, eliciting a groan before blood frothed at his mouth. A second rod was buried through his right wrist and into the hard wood, securing the older Uzumaki to the crossbar. Blood spilled out of his mouth in gory fashion, but even so, the man gazed at the blonde defiantly with his rinnegan. The final chakra receiver materialized in his palm. As the Jinchuriki plunged the last rod through the arches of his feet, nailing him to the stipes, his conscience evaporated, his innocence marred by the unnecessary blood on his hands. With the crucifixion complete, Naruto's rage subsided as quickly as it had come. What was this emptiness? He was supposed to feel satisfaction. The sudden loss of a goal led him to be greatly confused. It did not help that his vision swam with pain from overusing his chakra. The curse of hatred, said Asura with much sadness, perfectly putting a name to the indescribable emotion that his descendant had felt. I'm sorry, Asura-san. I failed you, the blonde whimpered as he fell to his knees. I let my hatred consume me. Shut up, you worthless piece of shit, growled Kurama. Now is not the time to be crying and bitching about how you fucked up. Look around you, all this damage. The villagers, half dead. They need someone right now. Someone who can help them. And you best believe you're that someone. Harsh as his words were, his Biju was right. Thank you, Kurama. The Uzumaki got into a kneel, his hands forming the reverse ram hand seal. Asura warned, Naruto, you sustained the 6 paths sage mode for over 30 minutes and your chakra is dangerously low. That might not be a good idea. It's the right thing to do. If I truly wish to be a Hokage, to lead my people, then I have to be prepared to serve even if it takes my life. For the second time that day, his chakra materialized as a cloak, along with its accompanying black orbs. They split up into hundreds of spheres the size of marbles which spread out across what was once the village, seeking out survivors to heal with their yang chakra. Suddenly, the Uzumaki coughed up blood before keeling over and collapsing to the floor with a thud. The roots of his hair began to bleach with the extreme exertion on his reserves, for even what Asura and Kurama offered had been drained to support his enhanced state over such a long duration. The last thing he saw before his eyes closed was the Godame Hokage and her ANBU guard, rushing over to his fatigued body. Hours later, the white cloth characteristic of medical tents greeted his eyes when they next opened, eliciting a groan as consciousness swept through his system. The only 2 occupants were the cat-masked ANBU and Tsunade, who had her glowing green hands suspended above his chest. You're awake, she noted with an even tone. In spite of his condition, he could still sense her emotions. She was clearly troubled and worried sick, but was suppressing tears. He couldn't blame her. He was in a sorry state. I thought you were a goner. You exhausted so much chakra that your hair turned white. Do you know how many chakra pills I had to administer? Chided Tsunade. It was all right. He'd rather let her get lost in the process of medicine, something she was familiar with, than focus on the bigger picture of what she couldn't administer anymore. A village. He managed a weak grin. Sorry, Bachan. The slug Sannin looked so stressed that her own hair might have turned white as well. Naruto. The village is completely gone, and so is the man you left for dead on the cross. We can only assume the Madara imposter took him. From a head count we did, there are only about 5,000 villagers left, discounting the shinobi currently on missions. With no homes left except yours, everyone is left absolutely stranded, and the food supply in the evacuation site will only be able to last us a week. Naruto made to sit up, but winced and clutched his stomach, which was still tender from releasing so much chakra. Rest assured, Your Imperial Highness. I might have a solution, spoke the single ANBU guard. The Uzumaki raised an eyebrow. Sure, they've called Tsunade princess, as she was the granddaughter of the Shodai, but Your Imperial Highness was a first. Suddenly, the purple-haired ANBU removed her cat mask, something which they never did in the presence of anyone else but the Hokage alone. Your Imperial Highness, I hereby resign from the service. This shocked the other two in the room, even more than the fact that she had called Tsunade by a title that had long fallen into disuse. Why now? Asked Tsunade. With all due respect, my lady, I have a higher lord to serve now, the woman replied. Who? The blonde's voice trailed off as it dawned on her. You can't be serious, she muttered. I should have known. What? Asked a confused Naruto. This lowly servant Yuzuki Yugao pledges her undying allegiance to Your Imperial Highness the Crown Prince, the former aide said with her head down as she knelt at a respectful distance away from him. After a moment of hesitation, Tsunade followed suit. The cerulean blue eyes of the prince widened. What the hell was going on? What kind of prince was he, and of which domain for that matter? How in the world did he not know about any of this? A million questions raced through his mind, but he forced himself to calm down. A prince was to behave in a stately manner, right? He took a deep breath. Please rise. Explain what is going on. As you wish, Your Imperial Highness. The Uzumaki clan is descended from the younger son of the Rakudo Sannin, Akatsuki Asura. With their formidable power and reputation for producing great leaders, many willingly became subjects of the clan over the years, including other tributary and vassal clans like my own, the Uzuki, a clan of imperial retainers. Eventually, the Empire of Whirlpool with the Imperial House of Uzumaki at its center encompassed all of the elemental nations, and the world was at peace under the Emperor of all under the heavens. However, during the Warring States period, strife tore the empire apart, with clans taking sides and breaking out of their tributary status to the empire to form their own nations and ninja villages, with the daimyo and kage leading them. Though they were all nominally subordinate to the Tenno Emperor, this weakened the power of the empire considerably, reducing their real sphere of influence to the village of Yuzushiogakure. The long-standing alliance of the Senju and Uzumaki clans, and the marriage of the Shodai Hokage to the Princess Mito did little to stop this. Some villages decided to band together to destroy the empire at its core, but what they only did was to fragment it. Many of its members escaped the chaos, including the young crown princess, Uzumaki Kushina. My clan was tasked by the court to follow the imperial family into Konoha to keep watch, and when the time was right, to launch an imperial restoration. We were given strict orders not to speak of or reveal your heritage until you came of age or completed the customary 3 deeds, feats of bravery and courage that have benefited the community. Why is Tsunade not the heir apparent? Naruto asked. She too was of Uzumaki descent through Uzumaki Mito after all. That is because the Uzushio Empire practiced absolute primogeniture, meaning the eldest child of the reigning dynasty would be the first in line to the throne. The first common ancestor between Your Imperial Highness and Tsunadeheim is the late Tenno Heisei, father of Mitoheim. He had an elder child, another emperor of whom Your Imperial Highness is a descendant, rendering Mitoheim's progeny a cadet branch of the imperial family. Tsunadeheim is thus formally titled Princess Tsunade of Mito, a Jew, princess of the outer court. a second-rank princess by birth based on her proximity to the legitimate line. As mentioned, by tradition, there exists 3 deeds that one must complete to prove themselves before one can be considered for enthronement, which you had just completed. Therefore, as the last surviving member of the main house of Uzumaki, Your Imperial Highness is the only legitimate heir to the Maelstrom throne. Naruto frowned. What empire is there for me to lead anyway? Wasn't it destroyed completely? Not quite, Your Imperial Highness. As of now, the village of Uzushio still stands in the Eastern Ocean, hidden from other villages by powerful seals and barriers. It was rebuilt by the resilient people of Uzushio, and with the technology of seals, I've heard that they've advanced far as a society. This is my proposed solution, to move the people of Konohagakure to Uzushio-gakure while we rebuild the leaf from the ground up. There, Your Imperial Highness will be crowned as Tenno, and peace will fill the lands of the earth once again. Naruto gave the Hokage a look. She nodded in response. All right then, it seems that this would be the most expedient solution. How will we get there? My lord, may I suggest informing Uzushio-gakure to send vessels to the nearest port? Spread the word then. The port of call will be Nami no Kuni. Get every shinobi on a mission to return as soon as possible. We'll set off by first light in 3 days' time, ordered the Crown Prince. Yes, Your Imperial Highness. Uzumaki compound later that night. Figures that you're the Crown Prince of some long-lost empire, said Sayuri as she sat up in bed. I mean, why not just add to the long list of accolades that will blow up your head even further? The Uzumaki laughed, running his hand through his ivory hair as he sat down next to her. Come on. I only wanted to be Hokage. His consort shook her head in mirth. I don't think you understand, Your Imperial Highness. When you ascend the throne, you'll be the most powerful man in all of the lands. The Kage are merely marquises, and the daimyo all dukes in the eyes of the Son of Heaven. Naruto raised an eyebrow. How do you know about all of this anyways? In my youth, I was made to study the feudal and kazoku peerage system as part of my education in the Uchiha clan. I only learnt about the empire in theory though. There was never any case study involving the Uzushio Empire. It's as if it was a piece of the past people wanted to keep buried. Naruto nodded. I see. If people had known about my true heritage, I think even more would have been out to get me than just my father's enemies. Fortunately or not, it seems the empire has been mostly forgotten after its destruction, and now it's a matter of reopening the borders. Sayuri sighed. It's not as simple as that. You've got to be strategic about this, Naruto-kun. It won't be easy convincing nations which have not been under a foreign sovereign's rule for decades to come under vassalage. We'll have to start with our allies like Nami, Suna, and possibly Kiri first. The future Grand Duke of the Eastern Oceans looked absolutely stressed. The young woman, sensing her husband's anxiety, gently pulled his head into her lap. I'm sorry. His cerulean eyes stared up into her space-black ones, now filled with more warmth than ever. What for? For stressing you out. The road ahead will be uncertain, and what I said probably did nothing to make it sound better. Naruto smiled. It'll take more than that for me to give up, Haim. I see a road to peace ahead. I'll be damned if I don't lead everyone towards it. If it helps, I'll be there for you, every step of the way. As she said those words, she lowered her lips and gave him a kiss on the forehead. She made to pull back, but Naruto's hands shot up and grabbed the back of her head, capturing her lips with his. Instantly, the Uchiha's face flushed a bright red at his unexpected affection. Thank you, Sayuri. 3 days later, Nami no Kuni. The past 2 days had been a blur. People were struggling to return to their daily lives and reorganize themselves, and it didn't help that they had no more houses, so they were all holed up in small tents in a temporary campsite on what was once the land of the village. Those who had families in the capital, mainly civilians, were free to leave and seek shelter. However, many shinobi clans were stuck in the situation as most of them had already been rooted to the village since its foundation. The announcement of the Crown Prince's Edict of Migration did not go down well with some, but for most they were simply glad that there was a place to go as the food supply was getting scarce. It was not like they had much of a choice anyways. Under the Hokage's aegis, no one dared to question his authority. Nonetheless, many were happy to hail him as their prince and hero as he had dealt with the invader, and did his best to provide relief by giving out all the possessions in his compound. This would probably not have lasted if they knew that the attacker was after the Uzumaki himself. In a sense, he had been indirectly responsible for the attack. The news of his heritage came as a shock to most of the people he knew. None had seen it coming, as the empire was practically unheard of for his generation. However, they were glad that it was someone they knew who had the reins, so they just went with the flow with today's exodus. After crossing the Great Naruto Bridge into Nami, Naruto and Sayuri decided to pay a visit to Tsunade and his family, along with their retinue consisting of Yugao, Tsunade, Kakashi, Sakura, and Shikamaru. Yugao became their personal servant due to her clan's vassalage, while Tsunade had to follow the Imperials, as the whole affair constituted part of her job as Hokage. Meanwhile, the rest of the entourage had been hand-picked by the couple. Kakashi was in charge of their security. Shikamaru was their advisor, while Sakura was their physician. "Their Imperial Highnesses are here," called Tsunami excitedly as she looked through the peephole before opening the door. She knelt down as they entered with their entourage, just as Tazuna pulled Inari down into the same position. "This humble family pays its respects to the Crown Prince and Princess of Uzushio," greeted the village chief with his head bowed. "Please rise. There is no need for formalities," Naruto said. Sayuri said, "It's been a while, Tazuna-san, but certainly sooner than I had expected." Inari grinned and ran towards her as soon as he stood up. "Wani-chan." Immediately, Yugao's hand reached for her katana, but the Uzumaki quickly gestured for her to stay her blade. The Uchiha smiled as she hugged the jubilant young boy. Setting him down, she ruffled his hair and asked, "How are things going?" The boy pouted. "There haven't been any bandits around lately for me to kick their asses." Tsunami's eyes widened at Inari's less than savory word choice. "Please forgive my son's crude words, my lady." The crown princess waved her hand dismissively. "That's good to hear, Inari-kun. There shouldn't be anyone causing trouble here, dash." And at this point her voice dropped to a whisper that only the boy could hear. "Or I'll kick their asses too." The boy broke into peals of laughter before shutting up when Sayuri placed a finger to her upturned lips. Meanwhile, Naruto sat down on the sofa as Tazuna served 2 cups of tea. "I prepared the port upon receiving your Imperial Highness letter 2 days ago. It's closed to all ships save yours, so the boarding should not be a problem," said the chief. Naruto glared in mock anger. "What did I say about formalities, Tazuna-san? Please just address me by name." "I wouldn't dare do that to the future son of heaven," came Tazuna's swift reply. The Uzumaki sighed. "Things seem so impersonal when titles are involved. Nonetheless, I must thank you for your service rendered. I don't doubt that today's port closure would have affected Nami's business severely. Rest assured, the Empire will compensate the county heavily for today." "County?" Tazuna repeated in confusion. Sayuri set down her cup after a sip. "That's right. The Crown Prince intends to ennoble and enfeoff your family as a reward for helping the people of Konoha. As soon as His Imperial Highness ascends the Maelstrom throne, you will be elevated to the rank of Hakushaku, Count." The man and his daughter gasped, and immediately tried to kneel but were stopped as the Imperial couple grabbed them before they could. "This lowly servant gives your Imperial Highnesses great thanks," cried Tazuna. The exasperated white-haired prince was about to swear, but held himself back due to the presence of the entourage visiting with him. "Tazuna-san, this was also because of the shelter you afforded my dear consort while she was out of Konoha. For this too, I give you my thanks," Naruto explained before proceeding to empty his cup as a show of appreciation. "Ni-san, can I ask you a question?" Inari interrupted to the horror of his mother. "Fire away." "Why is your hair white?" Naruto smiled. "Let's just put it this way. A really powerful bad guy got us into a huge mess. While fighting him, the amount of power I had to use bleached my hair." "Oh, forgive him, my lord, for he knows not what he asks," the worried Tsunami pleaded hastily. "It is fine, Tsunami-san. I was never one for formalities," Naruto assured as he stood up. Sayuri followed suit. "Once again, on my people's behalf, I thank you for the hospitality. Till we meet again, Tazuna-san." The man bowed, as did his daughter as the Imperial couple left their house. "This humble family sends off their Imperial Highnesses." Port of Nami. The town was flooded with Konoha emigrants, so much so that Naruto's entourage could only pass through the town square after much difficulty. In the process, his retinue had come across the marble statue of the prince. Quite frankly, Naruto was surprised at how much it resembled his old self. It did not, however, do justice to all his training. He sighed internally. When he ascended the throne, he would have to send a missive to get it replaced. Denka, yes, there's a small fleet on the horizon, Yugao pointed out. The white-haired prince squinted at the dots in the distance, which was obscured by the bright sunlight of the afternoon sky sparkling on the waters. You're right, I see it. But it seems a little small, don't you think? It was true. For vessels meant to transport the whole population of Konoha, Naruto had expected ships the size of the academy building at the very least. What was now fast approaching the shore were 5 watercrafts that could fit approximately 10 people each. Did you not specify the number of people to be ferried today? Naruto asked. The retainer quickly fell to her knees. I wouldn't dare, Your Imperial Highness. I did exactly as you had requested. He eyed the vessels. Then, can you explain what is going on? Sayuri's eyes glowed a faint red in the afternoon light, scrutinizing the boats. My prince. It seems there is more than meets the eye. The Uzumaki raised an eyebrow, signaling for Yugao to rise as the watercrafts neared the pier. A muscular man in his 40s disembarked from the flagship, marked by a prominent white flag with the red spiral of the imperial clan in the center and an anchor behind it. He was dressed in white and gray fatigues, and on his left arm there was a band emblazoned with the same symbol. The way the entourage surrounded Naruto and Sayuri made it obvious that they were the royals in question, and so the man knelt down, mirrored by every shinobi on board the fleet. This humble subject, the admiral of the Uzushio Armada, pays his respects to the crown prince and princess of Uzushio. Rise, Admiral. Explain how we will move the entire population of Konoha with this small fleet. The man stood up and gestured at his black yacht, which consisted of one main compartment which housed the helm. My lord, the boats of the Armada are laden with seals, including one at the bow which sucks in water and jets it out from the stern in a highly pressurized form, propelling the boat. Another one employs Jikuken ninjutsu to store anything in a separate dimension. Show me, came another voice on board the boat, startling the man slightly. It was a shadow clone of the prince. The admiral nodded. He formed a few hand seals, and a seal formula appeared on the surface of the deck. I see. It's a modified storage seal that taps into another dimension instead of just a seal. A circular opening materialized, exposing the large space inside that appeared to extend for miles in all directions. It was filled with slabs of rock for chairs, much like a waiting room except that it was the size of a town. This is one of the few vessels in the Armada fitted with such a seal. We use this for rescue and evacuation operations. The other boats that transport troops, like the 4 escorts we have today, have dimensions that are of a much smaller size. Ultimately, the aim is to possess small and light craft that can traverse the oceans quickly. All right, that has alleviated my concerns. Thank you for the tour, Admiral. You are most welcome, Your Imperial Highness. Hours later, even with all the crew trying their best to hasten the boarding process, it was only in the late afternoon that the last family got on board. The Admiral signaled for his men to return to their escort vessels, guiding the prince and his entourage onto the deck of his yacht. My prince, may we have your permission to set off? With a nod, the small fleet of 5 left the port, sailing off into the horizon. Bay of Uzushio, evening. Your Imperial Highnesses, may I invite you to witness this sight? Said the admiral who was personally helming the boat. The white-haired prince and his consort went to the front of the deck. Just up ahead was a cliff face that jutted out from the waters, and near its foot there were several jagged rocks that looked like they were meant to penetrate the hulls of ships, and it seemed the fleet was heading straight for them. Do not be alarmed, Your Imperial Highnesses. This is merely an illusory barrier to keep any foreign vessels away. While it is solid enough to do just that, a pulse emitted from the seals on board our fleet will enable us to pass through harmlessly. The entry is always a grand thing to witness. Sayuri resisted the urge to use her Sharingan, and was not disappointed as the magnificent sight that greeted her was well worth it. The wall of the cliff seemed to shimmer like a curtain as the fleet phased right through it. Behind it was a majestic fjord, surrounded on both sides by steep hills. The water was crystal clear and one could see various fishes swimming in it. This is the Chijukawa Longevity River, the main water body running through Uzushio, said the captain, the pride evident in his voice. Its source is at the summit of Hakitozen, Mount Polaris, and both are sacred to the village and the imperial clan. The resplendent rays of the evening sun bathed the island in a golden glow, illuminating a massive torii grounded in the river that towered over the entrance to the village. Its red wood bore the marks of the kanji Uzushio Gakure on one pillar and Village of Longevity on the other. Immediately behind the gate, the water body widened into a large lake-sized port. The cliffs that had originally enclosed the river opened up into a semicircular ridge that enveloped the front of the village before petering out into smaller hills. In the distance, one could clearly see the mountain the admiral was speaking of, with its snow-capped peak and its crown of clouds. More impressively, modernity seemed to overlap with tradition as skyscraping buildings of metal, concrete and glass were mixed in the same town as structures of wood that were so commonplace back in Konoha. Through the middle of the town, the waters of the Chijukawa continued to run, and it was not uncommon to see bridges span across its length throughout the bustling village. No metropolis. The architecture and scenery was simply breathtaking to behold, and it was no doubt in part due to the heavy application of fuinjutsu which powered Uzushio society. My sincerest apologies, Your Imperial Highnesses. We would typically have arranged to use a special waterway meant only for the imperial clan to travel between the Kokyo, Imperial Palace, and the harbor, but regrettably we are unable to do so this time as we have all the citizens of Konohagakure on board. Naruto waved a hand in dismissal. It's fine. We will travel on foot to the palace. Oh no, my prince. I believe the Kanecho, Imperial Household Agency, has arranged for a special party to escort your Imperial Highnesses to the palace. The 5 boats came to a halt at the dock, and the soldiers began to set up the gangplanks. Immediately, the people the admiral had spoken of could be spotted in the midst of the crowd, clearing the path with a couple of horsemen surrounding a carriage. A sudden silence rippled throughout the townsfolk as they realized what was happening. Most turned to face the new arrivals, so the only people still moving were the 10 young men on horseback adorned in uniforms with red brassards around their left arms. They were led by an older man, wielding what appeared to be a short wooden scepter topped with a pearly white ball and a multitude of ropes sprouting from it like a rooster's tail. Thank you for allowing me the honor of transporting your Imperial Highnesses, said the admiral in earnest. My colleagues from the Kanecho will now take over while we facilitate the movement of Konoha's citizens. He then genuflected, an action copied by his subordinates for the second time that day. This humble subject sends off their Imperial Highnesses. Sayuri allowed herself to be helped down the gangplank by Yugao as a noblewoman should, while Naruto disembarked to meet the party, which abruptly halted their steeds and dismounted. The man wielding the scepter got on his knees, and impressively, the horses did too. Every citizen nearby followed suit, before eventually all at the port were in the same submissive position. This humble subject, the Chokin Grand Steward of the Kanecho, pays his respects to the Crown Prince and Princess of Uzushio. Welcome home, your Imperial Highnesses. Everyone, please rise and carry on, Naruto shouted, his voice echoing through the respectfully silent port. The people did as they were told, and some began to cheer and whoop in excitement. The Chokin stood up and approached the white-haired prince. My lord, please board the imperial carriage. Your loyal subjects will bring your Imperial Highnesses to the palace as the Sessho, regent, seeks your audience. Regent? No one had mentioned anything about a regency in place at all. The Uzumaki threw Yugao a questioning look, to which she merely bowed her head. It seemed that she too had not heard of such a regent. My prince, let us not delay. I too wish to know who this person is, said Sayuri as she moved towards the open-air horse-drawn carriage. Naruto nodded and entered the black carriage before helping her up. As soon as they sat down, the Chokin tugged on the reins of his horse, kicking it off to a comfortable gallop as the other escorts followed suit. Along the way, the locals who spotted the procession made way and respectfully bowed. Some threw flowers, and many simply waved at the imperial couple from their windows. In short, they were given a hero's welcome, even without doing anything. It appeared that the imperial clan was popular in the village, and this regent probably had something to do with it, given that the Maelstrom throne had been unoccupied for 70 years or so. Every now and then, the carriage passed under arches and structures that the Chokin said was part of the metro. Sure, Naruto had heard of steam trains in the capital of Haino Kuni, but he'd never seen anything this fast. They shuttled many passengers and moved at a speed the Uzumaki would say was faster than any horse he'd seen. Unfortunately, the man had said that they wouldn't be able to board the train like commoners, and the use of the carriage was steeped in tradition and was the only form of transport dignified enough for the imperial clan. At the back of Naruto's mind, he knew that he should have expected this lack of freedom. Sayuri had already told him about such a life in the spotlight, and it wasn't pretty. Nonetheless, he had a plan in mind to explore the village and to do what he wanted. After a turn past a public park, they came to a large plaza that was mostly empty, with only palace guards donning the same red armband stationed along its perimeter. Each one knelt down as the carriage came into their field of vision, before two opened the central doors to the Mikado, Imperial Palace Gate, a giant granite gatehouse at the other end of the plaza. The three sets of doors themselves were red just like the border marker, but these had elaborate gold trimmings and the top of the gate bore all the hallmarks of traditional architecture. A prominent signboard above the larger central gateway was engraved with the kanji Gate of Empyrean Light, marking this to be the southern and main gate of the palace. The Mikado possessed a veranda that seemed to be meant for the imperial family to address the public. Extending from it were white stone walls on either side, which Naruto posited were surely marked by invisible seal barriers. The perimeter of the castle walls and the plaza were separated by a moat of water diverted from the Chijukawa. Finally, the carriage pulled into the main palace grounds, coming to a stop right before the Seiden State Function Hall. Their Imperial Highnesses, the Crown Prince and Princess of Uzushio, have arrived, declared the Chokin as he approached the open doors of the hall. The figure inside stood up, walking forward to meet them with a party of her own retainers. Instantly, Naruto was struck by a sense of familiarity. Your Imperial Highness, this is the Princess Regent of Uzushio, the Chokin introduced. Her Imperial Highness was formerly Princess of the Outer Court Dash. Grand Steward, you are dismissed, said the red-haired regent, cutting him off with a raise of her hand. As you wish, Your Imperial Highness. Your humble subject will take his leave. She pushed up her glasses to size him up, reaching out with her chakra sensory technique, only to find that he too had been inspecting her chakra with a pulse of his own. Karen,